All right, hey people, today is May 14th, 2024. I'm Chris Lucas. This is my show, The Protestant View. Today I have a really simple question for Seventh-day Adventists because some of them will say that that their date isn't important, but any one of them that say that is, I think, is a liar. They don't know their Seventh Day Adventism that well. I would say the ones who do know their stuff really well will tell you that the date October 22nd of 1844 is very significant. And before I get into my question, I do not want to see comments like this on my video. Because it's like, see, this is typical when I ask them a tough question. I get things like, brother, go back to politics. You're out of your league. Oh, can you address the question? No. And then this one, to be honest, I'm not sure I should even bother to post a response to your idiotic video. Just mocking something you don't understand doesn't make you right, does it? All it does is advertise your ignorance. And it's like, okay, dude, can you address the question, right? Like, I'm really tired of these little channels asking me the stuff, man, and not addressing the question. Just like, you got this one crackpot SDA that just does nothing but slander people, Jamie Russell, and it's like, dude, just answer the question. Just address the question. And what is that question? Oh, this is real simple. Find me one single person, any kind of Jew, who kept Passover in the month of May. That's all you got to do. And I'll let it go. But I cannot find a single one. And I'm going to even help you, right? I'm going to help do your research for you. Even though, no, I'm coming to you. I should get the answer when I ask you to, when I'm saying to you, what group is this, right? You show me the Karaite group. Because, okay, I'm open that different Karaites may have kept different calendars. Okay, maybe. But see, the problem is you still have to show, like, just because someone's like, well, I'm a Karaite Jew and I kept Passover in August, I kept it in December. Okay, just because they say they're a Karaite Jew, and maybe they are, but does that mean their calendar's right? So that's the other issue here, right? So just because you think you found a Karaite Jew, we got to make sure that they're actually got a calendar that can be confirmed, that like, oh, they really believe this. So that's why I'm asking you for this specific person. And the only person I can ever find is this guy named Kalman, who I have posted his letter in the past. I thought I had it up on my screen, but basically he says that it's this is the supposed Karaite that they keep saying, yeah, we got our calendar from a Karaite Jew. This is the only person I know who Samuel Snow spoke to. And Samuel Snow is the guy who helped come up with all this stuff with William Miller, right? And he helped confirm this date, right? He's the guy who helped confirm the date. Okay, so who was he talking to back in those days? Who was he dialoguing with? Because, right, he had to be talking to some Karaite to know if they're going by some certain observational calendar. Doesn't he have to be told, oh yeah, we're going by the sighted moon after the equinox, or we're going by the harvest, right? He's got to be talking to someone, right? He can't be just studying past reports and stuff. He's got to know something that's going on now. He's got to be in conversation with some Karaite, right? The only one I can find is this guy named E.S. Kalman, and he's the only one I know who even keeps this wacky date. This looks like such a fringe date that I can't find any Karaite group, any Jewish group at all. I'm not even just sticking to Karaites, because actually they need to find a Karaite since they said it's Karaite. No. I'll even go beyond. And I'm just looking for any Jew that kept this date. Who also kept an evening to evening day, because the Calvin keeps a day from sunrise to sunrise. Well, we know that Jews don't do this. So if but then we know we shouldn't trust Calvin, because that's a sunrise to sunrise calendar. So, if you know your Bible, you should be like, well, we shouldn't trust you. But see, the Seventh-day Adventists, they didn't know their Bible that well, right? Like, these were just some people they were kind of dumb people from what I understand, and they were very ignorant. And so when someone sounds very knowledgeable, that looked like it impressed them, right? Because if you read some of the stuff Snow wrote, it could kind of impress an ignorant person until you look at it further and more deeper. So, but when we look at it further, it's like, oh, so you were communicating with this guy Calvin. Oh, he's keeping a sunrise to sunrise day. Well, now, see, now I know for me in the Bible, it's evening to evening day. So, okay, maybe we shouldn't trust them. But see, the Seventh-day Adventists, got to remember, when they first were starting to keep the Sabbath, they didn't even know they should keep it. It wasn't until 2 years later, when they were in need of money and stuff, it looks like. And then this guy named Joseph Bates seemed interested in the Sabbath, and he had some money. Oh, hey, Sabbath keeping sounds kind of cool, right? And they adopted it. That's what it looks like to me. So then they're like keeping it from 6 p.m. to 6 p.m. But wait a minute. That's not what the Bible says. And yet they're supposedly, these like this group that's got some vision of the last days where they're supposed to restore God's law. And yet 2 years later, they're starting to keep the Sabbath. And then even, in 1846, because they got this vision in 1844. So maybe about a year or two later, 1846, they decided to start keeping Sabbath, but they're keeping it 6 p.m. So these guys still aren't reading their Bible very well, right? They still don't know. It's evening to evening. It's pretty simple. Didn't you read your Bible? Didn't you study it? And you even say you're a prophet with visions, and you're not getting this right. So just some red flags, right? Just be honest. Some red flags. That's all I'm saying. Just be honest with yourself. Red flags. Now let's just pretend we're living in that day. Now these people living back in those days, look, I mean, I'm not going to bash them for being ignorant and being impressed by people like this. It's like I understand you're growing up. You don't have the internet. I'm not bashing, the people that got swept up into this whole 1844 thing. But what I'm saying is, when people today with more knowledge, now what you got to do is you got to say, what if I had all this knowledge now that I got now, and let's say I was teleported back into 1844. Now I got some little girl running up to me. I got a vision. Oh, you got a vision, sweetheart? What was it? Oh, I saw Jesus going from the most holy to the holy of holies. Whoa, settle down, little girl. Now, how do you know? How do you know this date's right and everything, or what? I mean, why? Um, what's the significance of this? Like, I mean, what does this all mean? Oh, well, it's the Day of Atonement, and it's October 22nd, 1844. And on the Day of Atonement, which is the yearly, this yearly festival where the high priest would go into the most holy of holies once a year for the Day of Atonement. And now this is the antitypical cosmic Day of Atonement, where Jesus has went into the most holy of holies in heaven. Okay, and it's like, okay, so it's got to match up to the date of atonement, right? So that's got some significance. And so now if this other guy, Samuel Snow, walks up to me and is like, hey, yeah, I got this prophecy. Now, just imagine, let's go back before then, right when Samuel Snow, it's in August 22nd of 1844. So they haven't had their October day yet, right? And he walks up to you, with us knowing what we know now, he's like, yeah, I've been talking to this Karaite Jew, and he's confirmed this date. Oh, where's this letter? And you're reading that letter. Yeah, and we're confirming that it's going to be that we keep a sunrise to sunrise day, unlike those other Jews who keep evening to evening. My calendar says, which is sunrise to sunrise, says the Day of Atonement is going to be on October 22nd. And I'd be like, whoa, wait a minute. You got a sunrise to sunrise calendar, right? You guys would say that too, right? Right? I mean, you're not just gullible, stupid people. You would sit there and go, whoa, sunrise to sunrise. That doesn't sound Jewish to me, right? So I'm just saying, when you're reading these documents, kind of put yourself back. Take this knowledge and go back in time. Don't pretend to be ignorant, because you have knowledge, right? Pretend like these people are walking up to you and telling you this. You'd be like, whoa. Well, I need to see some better information. And see, that's all I'm doing, right? And so I do have a few things. Let me what I gotta go down. I'm gonna start at the bottom here, because I want you to see something, because I want you to understand. Okay, so we're going to understand that they got this really, really wrong. That's the one thing I'm going to definitely show you. Okay, so I asked the AI, I go, when was the astronomical new moon in 1844? It says it, and I've checked this several times. It says the astronomical new moon in 1844 occurred on Wednesday, April 17th. So, okay, so if it's Wednesday, April 17th, we know that it takes about 24 hours to actually see the sliver of the new moon. So now we're going to say it's going to be April 18th. Okay. So now if it's April 18th is going to be the first of NISAN, according to the Seventh-day Adventists and their little calendar they came up with. Okay, so let's add, we know 14 days later is going to be what? That's going to be Passover, because Passover, it always takes about 14 days. It's actually about the 15th day, because as soon as it's evening on the 14th, it begins the 15th. So we know about, you know what I should do? Let me ask the AI. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. When was the full moon in April in 1844? Oh, right, I meant May. Sorry, whoops. When was the full moon? May 1844. So we know 14 days later, about the 2nd or 3rd of May. I'm guessing 3rd. Let's see if I'm right.
The full moon in May 1844 occurred on Friday, May 31st, 1844. This date is based on historical records of moon phases. The full moon is the phase when the moon is fully illuminated as seen from Earth.
I wish I could stop it from talking. No. It's not. Then the SCAs would be really in trouble then. No. Because if the astronomical, I know it's got that wrong now. Because if the astronomical new moon was on the 17th, because what it is the full moon in April was on April 3rd. So it's like the next full moon is going to be on March 2nd. What did it say, the 31st? It might have had 2 full moons, maybe. That might be what it is. So it might have had a second full moon in May that year. Okay, I think that's what it was. It had a second full moon. But so it would have had a full moon around that might be it. So it might have been like a full moon around May 2nd, right? So if you try to figure out who had a full moon, and Passover has to be on full moon. That's why I'm bringing this up. So if they didn't start their the first month of their year until April 18th, and then they got their Passover in May, that's going to shove that's why their Day of Atonement's all the way to October 22nd, 1844. That's way further than anyone I've ever found, right? Because no one has Passover in May. And so if you have a May Passover, that's what it's going to take to have a Day of Atonement that's in October 22nd, 1844. Now, that to me, you can't find a single Jewish source. And I even asked the AI on here. I go, let's see here. Right here, I go, please, I'm trying to just find one time in 2,000 years where Passover was kept in May. And I go, you mean there's not one single time? And it goes, based on the historical records and the nature of the Hebrew calendar, there is no evidence of Passover being observed in May. The Hebrew calendar is designed to align with the lunar cycle and the agricultural seasons, ensuring that Passover falls in the springtime, which it corresponds to the months of March or April. The latest that Passover has been observed in recent history is as late as April. It told me April 24th is like the recent, it's the latest it's recently been observed. Now, I believe I'd have to go look at the calendar this year, but I think our Passover was on the 24th, if I'm not mistaken. And that was this past year. And we thought that was late. We were getting into fights with half the feast keeping community because I keep Sabbath and I observe the feast. I at least observe Passover. I'm still learning all this stuff. And half my friends I know, well, about 75% of them keep it the same way I kept it. They kept it in after. Okay, so you had the eclipse on April 8th. That means you couldn't see the sliver of the moon in the sky that night. So you had to wait 24 hours. So it'd be nighttime on April 9th. Would be would be when you saw the crescent. So we would count that the first of NISAN. And then if you go 14 days later, that's about the 23rd to 24th, right? So that's a pretty late Passover. That's why there was so much discussion, because it's like, well, the barley looks like it's close to getting ripe around that time. Like it might be ripe, but you got to make that decision. And, you got to make that decision before the month starts. And you got to sit there and go, okay, is it going to be Adar or not? And you got to make that decision before the month starts, and it's like, and people are like, man, it's hard to tell. I can't tell, there's a big fight over it, but see, you got to think they were going to start it a month earlier than me. I'm starting it a month later than I think at least 25% of the people I know, right? So, and they started a month earlier. I'm starting a month later, and they're telling us we're starting it too late. But this date we're having Passover on, you can only go you can go one. I know you can go one day later. I'm not sure if you can go up to April 26th. You might be able to do April 26th, but I know April 26th would be the absolute cutoff for as the late as the Passover. I know you can go up to 25, but 26 might be the absolute latest. So I'm just kind of feeling, our expert Seventh-day Adventist friends in on it. I know you guys don't need all this information. You know this calendar already so well because you're the experts. But anyway, it says the Hebrew calendar adds a leap month approximately every 3 years. Okay, I don't need to read all that. I just want you to basically see that I'm asking the AI, when has this ever happened? And And so again, earlier I asked it, could you please just find one Jewish group that kept Passover in May? It says, based on the search results and historical records, there's no evidence of any Jewish group that has observed Passover in the month of May. So you guys are the only ones who keep such a calendar. And I get earlier again, I'll show you this other response. I said, has there ever been a Passover in May in the past 2,000 years? On the Jewish calendar or any Sabbath-keeping Christian calendar who observes the feast. It says, based on historical records and the Jewish calendar, Passover has not occurred in May within the past 2,000 years. Boy. So it's not... so not in the past 2,000 years. That's why I keep asking you, Seventh-day Adventists. You need to provide this group. Stop just saying, oh, it's a Karaite. Well, okay, well, that doesn't really tell us much. We want to go look at this calendar and observe this group. Maybe if we got to talk to these people, they might know the calendar better than the whole entire Torah keeper community, right? And it's like, oh, maybe they might even set, everybody straight. They might set Herb Selinsky, who's like the best calendar expert I think I know of, who's been doing this for almost 30, 40 years. Almost every group, there's many people that think he's the number one guy. You guys could set him straight. Because the thing is, I don't know anyone that's ever started on the second, it started the month of Aviv or NISAN, whatever you want to call it, on the second new moon after the vernal equinox. Never saw this happen. And I got some more info. I'm kind of getting there, but I do want to touch on this because it's like, is it of any significance? Because some SDAs will be like, well, was it really that significant if we got the date right or wrong? And it's like, well, part of the whole thing is you guys believe that Ellen White had this vision of Jesus entering the most holy of holies on the Day of Atonement, because he was going to be, this is like the antitypical Day of Atonement, right? Where this is the cosmic one. And so it seems like it needs to happen on the Day of Atonement. And like, it seems a little weird if you're like, well, it actually was the month of Sheshvan on the 9th instead of the Day of Atonement. It's kind of like, it doesn't make a lot of sense because you're tying in all this like priestly activity of Jesus entering the Holy of Holies, just like the high priest would enter the Holy of Holies on the Day of Atonement. Like you keep tying this in together, and this is in your writings. So this seems to be a big deal. So if you got the date wrong, that seems like kind of a big deal. Because and I kind of had the AI write this up, and I said, and it says, the Seventh-day Adventist Church's doctrine of the investigative judgment is closely linked to the biblical Day of Atonement, or Yom Kippur. Here's a detailed explanation of the connection and significance. The biblical foundation in the Old Testament, the Day of Atonement was the holiest day of the year for the Israelites. On this day, the high priest would enter into the most holy place of the earthly sanctuary to make atonement for the sins of the people. This act represented the removal of sin from the community and the restoration of the relationship between God and his people. So you got that verse in Daniel 8:14, right? Because that's what they're tying it to. They go, they take the 2,300 evening mornings, but they're like, well, God made a mistake. That word should actually be days in there. And then they say that the King James authors had like this I guess like this inspiration from God to change the word to days. So they take and scratch out Erev and Bokur out of the Hebrew text and go, nope, that should be the word Yom or Yamim, right? Even though if it's plural. Yep. we're going to alter the Bible and say that it should be days. And now we're going to say it's going to be a year for a day prophecy, and it's 2,300 years instead of days. See, I think that's wrong too, right? How they just mess with the text and they can't leave the Bible alone. And we've never seen a evening and morning for a year prophecy. It's a day for a year, but they're like, oh no, the King James is correct, and King James only, and this has got to be it, and year for a day, right? It's like, and I think that's kind of crazy and wrong. But anyway, so it says, and typical fulfillment. The Seventh-day Adventists believed the earthly sanctuary was a type or a symbolic representation of the heavenly sanctuary. Accordingly, the events carried out on the earthly sanctuary foreshadowed a greater antitypical reality in heaven. They interpret the cleansing of the sanctuary mentioned in Daniel 8:14 as Jesus, our high priest, entering the most holy place of the heavenly sanctuary to begin the antitypical Day of Atonement. So, investigative judgment. This doctrine posits that starting on October 22nd, 1844, Jesus began the work of investigative judgment. This process involves examining the records of believers' lives to determine who has remained faithful and is thus prepared for salvation. It parallels the high priest's work on the Day of Atonement, but on a cosmic scale involving the destiny of every person who's ever lived. So the significance of the date. The specific date of October 22nd, 1844 was derived from a prophetic interpretation that linked the end of the 2300 day prophecy, which should actually be the 2300 evening and morning prophecy, with the Day of Atonement. The alignment with this date is crucial because it signifies that the final phase of God's plan of salvation, a prelude to the second coming of Christ, has begun. So, did it say anything? So, it says, if it was proven that the Day of Atonement occurred in September rather than October, it would challenge the Seventh-day Adventist interpretation of prophecy. The date is not arbitrary. It is theologically tied to the Day of Atonement. A different date would imply that the investigative judgment did not begin as they believe, which would undermine the doctrinal framework that supports their understanding of the timeline of salvation history. So that's how big of it. But they keep saying, "Oh, it's no big deal." Well, yes, it is. It actually is, because you guys link the two together. You're linking the Day of Atonement with this prophecy with Jesus entering the Holy of Holies, just like the high priest did. So yes, this is pretty significant. And you have to show that you're not the Antichrist, or not an Antichrist type figure like in Daniel 7:25, where you're going to change God's calendar to be what you want. Like, oh no, God, your Day of Atonement's not good enough. We're not going to go by your calendar. We're going to go by our calendar because we're correct. And we're going to rewrite your calendar because we don't feel like it was good enough. And so we're going to have our day, one month later. Well, if you are going to do that, can you show me just one single Jewish group that would have their Passover in the month of May? Because you got to think, these people got to harvest crops, right? And you can't have these crops rotting in the field, waiting around for you to do your first fruits. You want to make sure you time these feasts correctly to coincide with your harvesting and stuff. So you're not going to wait an extra month. Like, that just sounds ridiculous. So not only that, I want to know where these Karaites are from, because see, that's another thing. It's like, okay, you say it wasn't Kalman, which all your documents actually say it was. But if you want to say, oh no, it's a different one, well, please show us that. That's all we're asking. You show us that, because I don't know. It was maybe someone in Russia. Maybe Russia's crops are somewhere else. Maybe their crops don't do this until May. But should we be going by a Russian Jews' Day of Atonement? Right? So so that's kind of why I'm like, where is this group from? Who are they? Let's see them. It's kind of maddening to me. So let me see if I got some. Oh, I did want to read some Ellen White quotes. I want to make sure I got this part all tidied up. I'm pretty sure I got this. Yeah, these are just more times when I kept asking about the feast, and it says they can't find anyone. I told the AI, I go, that makes the Seventh-day Adventists seem a bit like a cult. If you can't, if they're the only ones that got this date, because they said if there's no one else that celebrated Passover in May in the past couple of thousand years, then they have their own calendar, right? So they got their own calendar. So that kind of sounds a little cultish to me, like you're just doing your own thing and you're not really biblical. You're not really sola scriptura, are you? And they say that and so anyway, I go, and they say that the Antichrist thinks to change times and laws of God based on Daniel 7:25. So that must mean by their own interpretation of the Antichrist, that they have a unique calendar of God that. Oh, I said, so it must mean that by their own interpretation that they are Antichrist if they have their own unique calendar that no one else can verify. And so I think, yeah, because you guys would agree that Antichrist thinks to change God's calendar. And so if you got your own unique calendar that no one else can testify to, and you can't find me one single source, hey, guess what that sounds like? Sounds like you got your own unique calendar and you're your own little unique cult with your own little unique beliefs that no one else has. So and so oh yeah, here's these quotes. So, Ellen White seems like she's confirming this, or there's the prophet speaking falsely. Let's see here. She goes, as the priests enter the most holy place once a year to cleanse the earthly sanctuary, so Jesus entered the most holy of the heavenly at the end of the 2,300 days of Daniel 8 in 1844 to make a final atonement for all who could be benefited by his mediation and thus to cleanse the sanctuary. So, which is actually still dirty. He was supposed to cleanse it, but the sins were the sins because they said the sins were what made heaven dirty, and it's through Jesus' blood that the sins make this heavenly sanctuary dirty, because that's how they traveled up there, was through Jesus' blood. So Jesus' blood got the heavenly sanctuary all dirty because he's got dirty blood, because I don't know, I guess he's not pure by their standards. So anyway, through his blood transfers sin. So the blood of Jesus is what transfers sins, according to them, into the heavenly sanctuary. Now he's going to go in there and he's going to clean up his mess. And I'm sorry, I'm probably making a few of them upset talking like this, but they never explain how the heavenly sanctuary got dirty. How does the little horn make the heavenly sanctuary? Oh, Jesus must be the little horn if it's his blood, and then they'll flip out. But then it's like when you try to get them, come on, tell me. It's like they can't. They're going all over the place. It's like, and then they'll get mad at you when you try to explain it. No, and then you'll ask them to explain it, and then it's like they're going all over the place. So to me, I got the right interpretation. But anyway, you can clearly see in her language, she's saying that she's making this out to be like they got the Day of Atonement right. Like this is the Day of Atonement. So your prophet's saying it, right? Because she's saying Jesus is entering it just like the high priest would enter on the Day of Atonement. Jesus is entering on the Day of Atonement on October 22nd, 1844. So, and here again, she's got another quote. The 10th day of the 7th month, which is on the Jewish calendar, the 7th month on the Jewish calendar will be, would have been around It actually would have been September that year, but they think it's October. So, but the 10th day of the 7th month, the great day of atonement, the time of the cleansing of the sanctuary, which in the year 1844 fell upon the 22nd of October, was regarded the time of the Lord's coming. So here she is confirming it. So is your prophet lying here? Is she saying something false? Is she speaking falsely? That's what I want to know. I'm gonna read this last quote. Well, basically, she just says, "Today he is making atonement for us before the Father," just in referencing to the, because she goes, "We call out the blotting of the sin that began when Jesus moved from the holy place to the most holy on October 22nd, 1844." And people probably wonder, it's like Ellen White claims not. And see, part of the problem with this woman is she says that God has spoken to us through the testimonies. When she talks about the testimonies, she's talking about the book she wrote, right? She goes, God has outlined his plan in his word and in the testimonies he has sent to his people. So again, talking about her testimonies. She said the testimonies are unread and unappreciated. God has spoken to you. So she's claiming that these writings are coming from God. So she's claiming when she writes, it's as if God is writing. So this woman's an idol. I want you to think about this too, because I just had this thought today. If someone goes, this person's a prophet of Baal, right? And we know Baal's a false god. Well, if Ellen White's claiming to be the prophet of some god, but it's not the God of heaven, this is definitely a different God, because God didn't send her. So what God is she the prophet of? So now when you go to her church, you're not going to the God's church, because this is not a prophet of God, right? You're going to Ellen White's church and the God she's a prophet for, right? She's got this false God who she represents, and you're going to her church because you're saying she's the prophet of that God, and you're going to that church and you're promoting it. So you're not promoting a Christian God at this church. I don't care if you call it Jesus or not. People can call, if it's kind of like, there's some groups out there that say, Jesus loves homosexuals, and Jesus, and which he might love the person doing it, but he doesn't think like homosexuality is great, right? Like we would say, no, the God of the Bible doesn't say that. That's a totally different Jesus. If you're saying that he's cool with gay marriage and everything, like that's a different Jesus, right? Like let's say they said, well, our Jesus says gay marriage is cool. Okay, they're using the name Jesus and all, and they might be holding a Bible and they might be reading parts from it, but is that really the same Jesus at that point? I would say no. That's a different. You might be calling this God of yours that you created Jesus, but you're smacking a name on him, but that's not Jesus. And so when you're a false prophet, you're representing a different God. Just like, the prophet of Baal was representing Baal. Well, we know this God our God of the Bible did not write this stuff. But so she's representing this God. So when you're going to her church, you're going to the God of this church, and it's not the God of the Bible. See, this is serious stuff, but people keep thinking, oh no, I can just go play around with these people and everything. It's like, no. They need to provide proof. I'm not one of these people that go, oh yeah, everyone's saved just because you believed in Jesus. No, well, what kind of Jesus did you believe in? You can't just go believing in any Jesus. Oh well, the Jesus that I believe in, he thinks he died on a cross and he rose after 3 days, and he thinks gay marriage is fine, and it's just okay that I'm that I'm a man and I'm sleeping around with 100 men. It's fine. Is that really the right one? Right? That's what I'm saying. Like there's got to be a specific one. Like I don't think you could just make up your own Jesus and say that one saved you and you're gonna go to heaven and everything's cool. Like it's like it's got to match up. And then I know some people will go way off the deep end and be like, well, Chris, no one can know the Bible perfectly. And surely everybody can be saved, every single person, no matter what kind of Jesus they believe in. And it's like, and I just don't buy into that, because I believe that God's going to know your heart and the sincerity of your heart. And he's going to know, did you just like want to be feeling comfortable, or did you actually search out and seek to know him, right? And seek to really know him and make sure that which one's the real one, because it's like a lot of people just sit there and they might not be really searching, because they might want to be like, well, I just kind of want to pretend like I'm dumb and I'm just going to, and this is pretty comfortable where I'm at. And I don't want to rock the boat, and I just kind of want to get along, and go about my life and have fun, or, just like feel comfortable. I just want to feel comfortable, I don't want to have to look for new friends or rock no boats. Okay, God's going to know all that. God's going to know the person that might be sitting at your same church who actually is trying really hard, but maybe they're just not real bright, and they're trying hard. Maybe that person might go to heaven, but you're not. I don't think people would sit there and go to heaven that just sit there with that kind of attitude. I don't believe in this whole see, it's hard for me to go, I don't believe in once saved, always saved. I believe it's like what you put your faith in, though, and you better make sure that you're putting your faith in something that's true. And you better examine yourself. But see, you got this woman. She says, if you lessen the confidence of God's people in the testimonies he has sent them, you're rebelling against God. I say you're rebelling against whatever God she's the prophet of. You're not rebelling against the true God of this earth, the God of the Bible. You're rebelling against her God that she represents as a prophet. Just like, the prophet of Baal, whatever God Ellen White's the prophet of. It ain't the God of the Bible. She can call it Jesus if she wants. Jesus, this God, the God of the Bible, did not send her this. And she says, these books, given the instruction that the Lord has given me during the last 6 years, contain the light from heaven. And will bear the test of investigation. Well, so far they haven't bared any test of investigation. And I don't know what Lord gave him to you, because, Satan's the father of lies. So it might be Satan. So you might be the prophet of Satan, right? Because this looks like a lie to me. God doesn't lie. And we know you got some prophecies wrong. And you got the Day of Atonement wrong. I don't know. Tell me a prophet of the Bible who got the feast wrong. And this one seems like a very significant one according to the Seventh-day Adventists, so you better get this one right. You can't just say, oh, well, that's the only... You know what's the real craziest thing about this group? Is that they don't keep any feast. This is the only feast that they ever kept. Like, they think Passover should be done away with. They're like, oh, that crazy Polycarp, man, I don't know what he was doing keeping Passover. So what they basically do is they just shoot their feet off on this one, right? Because it's like, when you get rid of the quarter decimans, you've lost any kind of connection to the Sabbath, right? Because now it's just like, well, if those silly people were keeping Passover and it was done away with, then obviously Sabbath was probably done away with too, because they're the only ones keeping it. It's like everyone else is keeping Sunday, and we know. And so the Seventh-day Adventists kind of argue against themselves, because they go, well, the quarter decimans are crazy for keeping Passover, and it doesn't seem all natural then if the Sunday observers go, well, they were the only ones keeping Sabbath, so maybe they were also keeping Sabbath and it was done away with. Like, that's a good question. Like, those Sunday observers, if you're going to say that to them, Seventh-day Adventists, they have every right to say that. Every right. Now you don't have no one. You're like, well, there's, oh no, I don't have anyone else to look to. Because now it seems real stupid when you threw away the only group that was keeping Sabbath, because it looks like, well, it just looks real natural to go, well, if they're keeping Passover and they shouldn't have been and it was done away with, it seems kind of natural that probably Sabbath was done away with. And now who are we left with? Now, when we get rid of that group, we can't find a group that, wasn't keeping any feast at all, including Passover or Easter Sunday, and keeping Sabbath. There's no group like that. So now all there is these Sunday people keeping Easter Sunday and observing the weekly Sunday. And you can't tell me, oh, for so many years, go by and there's almost no Sabbath keepers at all, except for the quarter-decimants, but you say they're done away with. So who do we have? And you got this long stretch of time. It just doesn't seem right to me that God's not going to have any kind of remnant whatsoever. Then you must say it's the Sunday must be the right one. So I just kind of think they're kind of crazy. But anyway, it's just a little rant. I just really hate how they don't like the quarter-decimants. But I just kind of want to read a little bit more of this. And she goes, I beg of you, for Christ's sake, to consider what I say, for I say it not of myself. It is the word of God to you. So this is in letter 25B, 1895, pages 1 through 3, to brother and sister Hare on April 1895. So I'm just saying, this woman, she's sitting there saying she's a prophet, saying she's getting all these messages from God, never, continuously calls this thing the Day of Atonement, October 22nd, but we find no proof whatsoever. Now, don't think I can't go on deeper. I just want to understand that, like, you guys did research this, right, before you started believing it. So surely, like, don't act like it's like the hardest thing, me asking you this question. I'm asking you one question that looks real easy. Just show me a group of Jews that was keeping Passover in May. Shouldn't be that hard. It shouldn't be like, oh wow, you're the first guy to ever ask. But they act like I'm the first guy that ever asked them this, and because they seem to have no care. And I even show them, look, Calvin, this is the only one I can find, and this is the guy who was talking to Samuel Snow. And at first, some of them, they'll be like, oh yeah, that's him. And I'm like, oh, but he was keeping sunrise to sunrise. Well, no, that can't be him. Well, and I'm like, well, what Karaite is it? This is the only Karaite I can find. I've searched and searched and searched. This is the only Karaite I can find that has a calendar anywhere near remote to them. And also, this just happens to be the guy that Samuel Snow was talking to. So I did make a 9-minute video, but just to make sure I include it in this one, just in case in the future no one watches my 9-minute video, I did find this paper from August 22nd, 1844 that Samuel Snow wrote. It was in the True Midnight. And it says, you can see it got this right off of Marathon of Media. We know that's I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that word, but we know Seventh-day Adventist organization. And I'll just kind of skip down to page 15. I was in a rush to work, but it says this event took place according to Dr. Hales, one of the ablest and best chronologers, in the spring of AD 31. It's talking about Christ's crucifixion. Ferguson has placed it in AD 33, but But in order to prove, he assumes the rabbinical mode of reckoning the year, which is not correct. They commence their year with a new moon in March, but the Karaites with a new moon in April. The word Karaite signifies one perfect in the law. These accuse the rabbins of having departed from the law and conformed to the customs of the heathen, and the charge is just, as they regulate their year by vernal equinox, in imitation of the Romans, where the law says nothing of the vernal equinox, but required on the 16th day of the first month the offering of the first fruits of barley harvest. But if the year be commenced according to the rabbins with the new moon in March, the barley harvest could not possibly be ripe in 16 days from that time. The Karaites are therefore undoubtedly correct. Now our Lord was crucified on the day of Passover as an evident. But here, I think he's still talking about 31 AD, but he's got some of this wrong, because we know on our current calendar, the way they got the calendar set up, it's that the equinox is going to fall on like the 18th, 19th, or 20th, right? One of those days every single year. So basically what you don't want is the month of Abib starting too soon before that. Now, the calendar I keep's a late calendar, and it always starts the new moon after the vernal equinox. So it's always going to be after that date. And it's really considered the latest calendar anyone uses. And the reason why I use that calendar is because in Genesis 1:14, God says, let the lights in the firmament be for days, for years, and for Moedim, right? For seasons. Or well, Moedim would be feast. But anyway, but so it's the lights in the sky. It doesn't say nothing about, the barley harvest or anything like that. So it looks like to me in Genesis, it's the lights in the sky. And this year, it's like even some of the people that swear by only going by the barley, well, they found a little bit of ripe barley, and they thought, well, maybe we can have Passover in March this year. And on my calendar, well, I was just going, well, it's still not. I'm still waiting for the first crescent moon after the equinox. So I got to wait till after March 19th or 20th, and so that's not going to be until April 9th, because we had the eclipse on 8th. So you're not going to see it on the 8th, because that's when the moon's totally black, right? We all know that this year really easy. So, and so if anything, the people who went only by the barley and was like, oh, boy, I found a little patch in Israel. And I don't even know if it's Monsanto stuff or what, they found, but they say they found some. So they decided to start their month, the same time that the Roman Catholic Church does. So, but the Roman Catholic Church, the main difference about them is they would wait until the Sunday after whenever the people celebrate Passover. So I think that was like the 31st or something like that. I don't know for sure. But anyway, so if anything, it's going to be they had theirs a month earlier. Me going by my calendar, they're already crying that it's late, right? But to have it 1 month more just seems crazy to me. And that's exactly what the Seventh-day Adventists are arguing for. It's like, well, we think it should be the second new moon after the equinox. And it's like, I just never read anything like that. I even went through that with the AI. I was like, did anyone ever believe that? Oops. If I go back to it, I even asked it earlier. I said, did anyone ever do that? Like, oh, has anyone ever done that? The second month after the vernal equinox? It says the month of Abib, known as Nisan, is significant in the Jewish calendar as it marks the beginning of the ecclesiastical year and is associated with Passover. Traditionally, the month of Abib begins with the new moon closest to the vernal equinox. However, there are variations on how different groups may calculate the start of this month. From the information available, it seems that the traditional Jewish calendar, which most of the rabbinic Judaism follows, does not start the month of Abib on the second new moon after the vernal equinox. Instead, typically aligns it with the first new moon after the vernal equinox, as this is when the barley in Israel is expected to be in the stage of Abib and is necessary for Passover offering. So, and if I would have asked it, because, okay, you're probably thinking, oh, that's the rabbinic calendar, but it doesn't matter. If I ask it for the observational calendar, it's going to tell me the same thing. I've been through this. I don't feel like starting a brand new co-pilot deal, but there was something I wanted to read. Because it said, see right here, I go in an earlier conversation, I said, but is not E.S. Kalman, the Karaite, Snow discussed the calendar with? It says, yes, you're correct. E.S. Kalman was indeed the Karaite Jew with whom Samuel Snow had discussions regarding the Karaite calendar. Snow's understanding of the Karaite reckoning of the Day of Atonement in 1844, which led to the adoption of the October 22nd as the significant date, was influenced by his interaction with Kalman. This discussion and information was provided by Kalman, played a crucial role in shaping the Millerites movement and expectations of the prophetic fulfillment of the Day of Atonement in 1844. So there you have it. So I don't know. See, Nick, you want to send me that info because you got my Facebook. I don't know if you sent it yet. I know I checked like a day or two ago and I didn't see it. What are the official SDA statements? That's what I'd like to know, because the official SDA statements say that do they got give me a source of one Jewish group that kept Passover in the month of May? Like, I don't want to just hear random Karaites. Give me a specific Karaites, because we also know if you look at Karaite Corner here, I'm going to bring this up too. Karaite Corner 1844, October 2nd. Because I know someone's got a letter. Pretty sure I saw it, man. Yeah, because this website, Truth or Fables, they wouldn't even wrote to them. Let's see if I can get down to here. So on this website, it says facts: Seventh-day Adventists have failed to provide any Karaite calendar or any documentation from Karaite Jews to show their Day of Atonement was on October 22nd. I'm asking that you even show me one single time in 2,000 years that they had a Passover in May. Do you realize how crazy that is to have a Passover in May? Like, just show me one single time that's ever happened. That's my only question. That question, right? Scrolling at the bottom of the screen for the past hour. So, and on this website, it says they now have official documentation by Karaites that the Day of Atonement in 1844 is the same as the rabbinical Day of Atonement, which is late September. So even if I use my observational calendar and I'm looking at all the dates of the moon and the astronomical new moon and all that stuff, I calculate the same thing. So we all would have been right, maybe a day off, because I can't remember off the top of my head if the rabbinical calendar was a day off. I think it might have been a day off, but I might have been a day ahead of it, maybe. Or I wouldn't say a day ahead, but mine might have been the very next day, maybe. But I'd have to go look all that up. But anyway, you can see right here, this is the letter from the Karaite corner. You can see their address right there. So it says, "Dear sir, in the past you've asked me regarding the Karaite date for Yom Kippur in 1844. I have recently received further inquiries about this matter and have done some investigation into the subject. Here are my preliminary results. In the Middle Ages, the Karaites ardently maintained that the biblical year begins with the ripeness of the barley crop in Israel, called the Bible Abib. The rabbinic calendar originally followed this practice, but around the 9th century CE, they adopted a 19-year cycle of intercalation leap years, which approximates the Abib, but which is far from accurate. This often caused the difference of a month between the Karaite and the rabbinic calendars. So this still calls it a year different. I mean, a month difference. The Seventh-day Adventist tradition seems to have heard of this Karaite practice, or perhaps assumed it was a Karaite practice based on their correct assumption that the Karaites strictly follow the Bible. The Abib was a central issue to the Karaites, and to this day, the Karaite marriage contract includes a vow that the marrying couple will celebrate the holidays according to the visibility of the moon and the appearance of the Abib in the land of Israel. However, already in the Middle Ages, there were Karaite communities who slowly adopted the rabbinic 19-year cycle. At first, it was only Karaites in the distant lands of the dispersion who followed the rabbinic 19-year cycle. They claimed it was difficult to receive reports of the state of the barley crop in Israel from so far away. So that makes sense. As late as the 15th century, though, the Karaites of the Holy Land continued to follow the Abib, even though their compatriots in the dispersion accepted the 19-year rabbinical cycle. So 15th century Karaite Elijah, whatever, says, having explained that the beginning of the year, according to the law of our Torah, is according to the Abib, which is found in the land of Israel, and the conditions which we have mentioned, because of our great sins, we have been distanced from the Holy Land, and we do not have the capability of finding the Abib. We have been forced to follow the calculation of intercalation, like that done by our brothers, the Rabbinites. So they're saying they had to wind up doing this. But this is the people that are living outside of the Holy Lands. So it says that the 269th cycle, we heard that the 4th year of the cycle, what was the month of Elul, was for the people of the land of Israel, the month of Tishri. And this also happened in our, I can't pronounce that person's times, in the year 5240, which is 1479, 1480 CE, the 15th year of the cycle. People went from the community in the holy city, Jerusalem, and said that the 14th year of the 276th cycle, which we are in, which was for an intercalated year, 13 months. That's what that means when it says intercalated. It means it was a leap year. Was for them a regular year, 12 months. And our faith should not be weakened by this, because they in Israel go after the observable, and we in the diaspora go after the approximation. The end of the matter is all maintain the legal decision of the inhabitants of the land of Israel should go according to the Abib in the land of Israel. And those far away should go by the calculation of the intercalation of leap years and simple years. So it looks like, unless they were from Israel, and that's where I'm trying to figure it out, who were you talking to? And it can be seen that in Baskayachi's own time, the Karaites of the dispersion followed the rabbinic 19-year cycle, while those in Israel followed the actual appearance of the Abib. And at times, this caused a difference of 1 month in the calendar. But see, like I said, that would sometimes mean that if they're going strictly by the Abib, they might be seeing some ripe barley and having it early. Nevertheless, by the 19th century, the Karaites universally followed the 19-year rabbinic cycle, both in the diaspora and in Israel. In the 19th century, the Karaite Hacham Shloma ben Afadah wrote an abridged paraphrase of Elijah's whatever. In his abridgment, he paraphrases the above quoted passages but adds the following words. And for some time now, the quest for Abib has been abandoned, even in the land of Israel. And they, the inhabitants of Israel, intercalate years using the above-mentioned system, the 19-year rabbinic cycle, like we do outside of Israel. So, I mean, I'm just saying, like, it looks like a lot of them. See, oh, and here it says, so it looks like all Karaites everywhere had been for many years using a 19-year rabbinic cycle. So it's kind of further. And then when you just see that, look, man, it's something crazy. Like, you would have to assume that a Jew someplace celebrated Passover in May. So basically, you got almost all these Karaites observing this rabbinic calendar. The rabbinic calendar, even if you were on an observational calendar, this is one of the few times where everyone would agree. They'd be all celebrating it in September, because you're not going to have a Passover any later than, you're not going to have a Passover in May. So it's going to be the one that was in April, on April 3rd. And you're not going to have it earlier either, because that's too early to see Abib. You're not going to see no ripe barley that early, because you count back 14 days from April 3rd. It'd be like, I mean, you might, maybe. There's a slim chance. Well, no, wait a minute. I'm sorry, because 14 days earlier would be the equinox. So no, you're not gonna get any. So you're not gonna celebrate. They're definitely not going to see a bee before the equinox. I don't think they've ever seen a bee barley before the equinox. So they're definitely everyone's just gonna be on the same calendar this year. So they just picked the wrong year to have this, man. The wrong year to decide to do your whole October, your Day of Atonement, Seventh-day Adventist thing. Yeah, I know I'm checking the anti ones, but this is still the same information. Like, I'm still being charitable. It's not like I'm not being charitable, Nick. Or Jason, I should say. You want to come up here and give me a date? You don't even have to come on my show. You know, you can keep your camera off. Just pop on my show, and then just like go into the private chat and just drop links you want. You know, or if you want to come on my show, I'll hang out here for about 15 more minutes. But I mean, like, what's the official site? What are they gonna say? I mean, because I want something really good here, because to me, this seems crazy to have Passover in May. Like, I've been looking for this for about a year now. So you can't say, I'm not trying, I'm not concerned. I mean, you guys should be like, I don't know, why couldn't one single Adventist on any website that I go to answer me this question? You know how many times I have dropped comments and live chats or different SDA comment pages? Like, I've asked School for Prophets, I've asked you guys, I've because they're the Advent Defense League. I've asked the Advent Defense League. I asked Jamie Russell, but Jamie Russell sit there and cry in videos and just make slanderous comments about me. Then say, "Oh, that's just the craziest thing anyone would think." Whatever would be true, and then he'll just go on with slander without making any kind of like, can you just shut up and just start your videos off going right into facts, instead of like making all these like slanderous comments forever. And that dude's gonna get it, man. I'm gonna tell you right now, man. That guy, because that ain't my fault, dude. You went and worshipped a false prophet. But yeah, I mean, I could go to Pickle Publishing website if you want. You know what's he gonna say? Bob Pickle, like Bob Pickle, um, uh, Day of Atonement. Let's see here. Because I don't think Bob Pickle's got anything. Bob Pickle would be like, okay, so see, and oh, wait a minute, why is he bringing up? Look at this, dude. Look, you think I'm crazy? Here's Bob Pickle, and he's even bringing up E.S. Kalman. Oh, no one uses Kalman. Wow. So what does he say about E.S. Kalman? Now we need to investigate the question to see what were the Karaites doing in 1844. We have the testimony of this guy Shlomo that long before the 1860, the Karaites of Palestine has given up their form of reckoning the balanced reckoning of reckoning the commencement of the year. This must be balanced with the following from the article, which was quoted by the December 1843 issue of the Signs and March 20th, 1844 issue of the Advent Herald. The following is a communication from Mr. Kalman, written long ago as 1836 American Biblical Repository of 1840, page 398. This Mr. Kalman was a converted Jewish rabbi who at the time of the writing was about to return to Jerusalem from Beirut, where he was recovering his health. Before going to Beirut, having left England under the patronage of a few private individuals as a missionary to the Jews in the East, he proceeded first to Baghdad, then to Jerusalem. Kalman's article is critiquing a book written by Ridley Herschel, which with he differs with some points. You must not for a moment suppose that I mean to charge Mr. H., so Mr. Herschel, with falsehood. Far from it, for I must acknowledge that before I became acquainted with the Judaism in the East, or rather, before I had thoroughly looked into the state of the religious and morals among them, in consequence of my labors, and for the benefit of their souls, my views were nearly like those of Mr. Herschel. Judging from his learning and his personal acquaintance with the Jewish affairs in the Middle East, one would think that Mr. Kalman should know what he's talking about. Yeah, and see, but remember, I got that letter. Says he was keeping sunrise to sunrise. 1 month too early. Notice carefully the first point he covers and the lengthy remainder of this article. I will begin by stating one fact of great importance, which I was totally ignorant before I came to this country, which will prove that the seasons of the festivals appointed by God for the Jewish nation have been annulled and subverted by oral law of the scribes and Pharisees, which is now the ritual of the Jews. Mr. Kalman considers the issue of great importance and learned of it only since arriving in Palestine. What immediately follows is a short description of the biblical requirement for, that the year begin when the barley is in a certain stage of ripeness. Then he says, but at present, the Jews in the Holy Land have not the least regard to the season appointed and identified by Jehovah, but follow the rules prescribed by the oral law, namely by adding a month to every second or third year, and thus making the lunar year correspond with the solar. And when the 15th day of Nisan, according to the computation, arrives, they begin to celebrate the above-mentioned feast. Although the Chodesh Habib may have passed or not yet come. In general, the proper season occurs after they have celebrated a whole month, which is just reversing the command in the law, which directs that the Chodesh Habib precede the festival, and not the festival precede the Chodesh Habib. which is basically the Abib, which just means the barley ripening. Nothing like ears of green corn I have seen in Jerusalem at the celebration of this feast. Mr. Kelman has thus informed that in general, Jews around 1836 were keeping their feast 1 month too early, which can happen, but not on the calendar I keep. Therefore, just as this point makes a good case for October 22nd being the correct date for Yom Kippur in 1844, regardless of what the Karaites were doing. No, Mr. Pickle. No. This does not make a case. This makes a possibility. But when you go, 1844, no. I mean, in October 22nd, no. That's way too late for the Day of Atonement. So, no, you didn't make a good case because it's always going to be ripe by then. It's always going to be ripe. You're never going to have Day of Atonement on October 22nd. October 20th is about the latest you'll ever get it to be. It's October 20th. And you might say, oh, that's just 2 days. Hey, that is, you don't shove your harvest out when it's unnecessary. When you see the crescent moon after the vernal equinox, there's no need to do it. You'll never find, I challenge you, find me a time. Here's another thing you Seventh-day Adventists could do. Find me a time when the barley wasn't ripe for Passover. If you keep Passover in the month on the first crescent after the vernal equinox, show me one time when you would have had to wait till the second moon. All right, you won't find it. It's always going to be the first crescent moon after the vernal equinox is when you're going to start that month of Abib at the latest. And sometime 14 days later, you're going to have ripe barley. Show me one time when that's not the case. That's all you got to do. Show me one time. How hard could that possibly be? Oh, it's probably impossible that you'll never show me one time when it wasn't ripe. 14 days later, 15 days later, after when you're like basically the new moon after the vernal equinox, count about 15 days later, prove to me one time the barley wasn't ripe. And then you might have a point. But see, so far I read this and I don't like this guy, he's really reaching. It says, but at the present, the Jews in the Holy Land have not the least regard for the season point identified by Jehovah. I'm trying to see, because he's not really saying anything. Mr. Kelman has thus informed us in general, the Jews around 1836 were keeping the feast 1 month too. No, oops, I already read that. So he didn't really say anything here. To me, he did not make a point. He really wasted my time. Okay, so I need something better than that. That guy wasted my time on there. Really wasted my time, Mr. Bob Pickle. Let's see here. Kara, So I think this one. Nope, I done that one. So maybe this one. Got anything? Does he have anything better? So it says October 22nd, 1844, supposedly the Jewish Day of Atonement for that year. However, using the information from Universal Jewish Encyclopedia, we find that in 1844, the Day of Atonement began after sundown, April 23rd, not October 22nd. So this crucial date in Adventism was flawed, incorrect from the beginning. So that's a quote from David Snyder. So it says number 7, October 22nd was not the Jewish Day of Atonement. Snow never identified October 22nd as being the Jewish Day of Atonement per se. He knew better, as did other Millerites, and neither was September 23rd the Jewish Day of Atonement. I don't know what they mean by that. There are many different sets of Judaism. I was even being charitable with that. So yes, there are many different sets of Judaism, and one prominent set, the Karaites, regularly, and there's different sets of Karaites too. But see, that just because you find a Karaite, like I said, you still got to prove his calendar is correct. But right now, I can't even find a Karaite except for Kalman, who kept a sunrise to sunrise day, who had a Passover in May. So I'm just trying to find one that has an evening to evening day who has a Passover in May. So it says regularly differed from the rabbinical Judaism and how they began their year. This meant that the Karaite Jews often kept the Jewish feast 1 month later than the rabbinical Jews. Thus, there was often more than one Jewish Day of Atonement per year. When this happened, no one date could be called the Jewish Day of Atonement. Yeah, the problem is, though, no one had it late that year, and almost probably every single Jew celebrated the exact same day that year. So, yes, in some years, yes, maybe you can make that argument. Like this year, like I said, half they're 20, at least 25% of the community kept it earlier than me, kept it in March. And then the other 75, at least 50 to 75% kept it in April. But no one kept it in May. And you won't find that in any year. And you got to think, we had a Passover on April 24th. So this is about the latest you're going to ever have a Passover. The rabbinical Jews accepted oral traditions in the addition to the Word of God, but the Karaite Jews rejected all such traditions and relied only on the Bible. They were therefore a back to the Bible movement within Judaism. A modern-day Karaite Jewish leader in Israel, Nehemiah Gordon, informs us that in 1999, the biblical Day of Atonement was on October 20th, not in September like most other Jews thought. Karaite newsletter. 99, but I don't have a problem with October 20th. That's fine. It can be on that day. It just can't be any later. So we have no problem. See, they keep going, and then it goes, that's pretty close. But you don't understand. See, this just shows the ignorance. That's ignorant. That's so ignorant. 2 days is a big deal because you're talking about Passovers in May. No. That's just where they're kind of clueless. Do you understand? Like, no one. Show me that in Jewish history where they started the month of Aviv on the second new moon after the vernal equinox, the second new moon. So the Jewish calendar is a lunar calendar. Its months are but 29 and 30 days each, with about 354 days to a year. Oh, so I've seen Jason's commenting some more. The correction by the Millerites of the beginning of the Jewish sacred year was made deliberately and understandably on the basis of the original Mosaic stipulation to which their attention was directed by the early Karaite contention in behalf of the beginning of the true sacred year of the new moon barley harvest in Judea, 25, which usually fell in April. This is the basis for their designation of October as the 7th month of the true Jewish time of the sacred year. Of what year? Because I don't look. I don't argue that you can't have the month of Tishri in October. My problem is that you're not going to have the Day of Atonement be that late. Like that's just way too late. Like, I mean, well, okay, but your official writings aren't. Okay, so you say the correction by the Millerites of the beginning of the Jewish sacred year was made deliberately and understandably on the basis of the original Mosaic stipulation to which their attention was directed by the earlier Karaite contention on behalf of the beginning of the true sacred year of the new moon of the barley harvest in Judea, 25, which usually fell in April. But you weren't harvesting it no. But see, the thing is, you're doing it in May. Yes, it's usually in April. I don't disagree with that. You guys are pushing it off until May. Like here, I'm going to pull up a calendar. This is a rabbinic calendar, but it's only going to be off a day. And we already know, like, we're going to slide the months real, ahead by 1 month. But I can show you how bad this is by looking at their calendar. But no, that's not how this works. No, that's you say if we count April as the first month of the 7th month would be no, but March and April were the first month. That's the whole thing. Like, this is a year where every single Christian and Jew would have been agreeing that in March of 1844, because you got the first of Nisan right here. This is you've already had the equinox here. It's either the 19th or 20th. Well, now you got the sighting of the crescent moon the 21st. You wait until after the equinox. So now, 21st, this is after the equinox. So now we're going to go count until now we got the 3rd, right? So right here is the full moon. It's going to be this night, Wednesday night. So this is going to be the first day of unleavened bread. The barley's going to be ripe. I'm you find me 1 year where you have where you start the month of Nisan around the 21st, where the barley's not ripe by when it hits this date. All right, because I'm saying when the crescent's right here, you show me one single month where the crescent moon, is seen after the equinox. So that'd be about after the 20th. I'll even take the 20th. I'll give you anytime you see the crescent moon after the 20th or 21st, you see the crescent moon around here. Show me one time in the past 1,000 years, 2,000 years, where the barley wasn't ripe by right around here. Now, there you might find some years where it's like, oh, the barley wasn't ripe on Wednesday, April 3rd. Look, I found no, because in that same year you might have started your crescent moon on the 26th. So then that's going to shove your dates, until maybe like the 7th or 8th, right? Would be like your harvest. I'm just saying you're not going to find a year where it's like, it's, we started it. Now we've got to shove it all the way to here. Because what you're saying is you got the 19th. So this year, in order for it to fit your calendar, you're telling us, nope, this isn't where you would start it. You're going to instead start it here on the 19th, right? So now we're in the month of Lyre, right? Yeah, Lyar. So if you look at this calendar, now, like I said, it might be off a day, but the 4th of May. So that means you're having a Passover on the 4th of May. 3rd or 4th of May. That to me, it seems unrealistic. And I'm like, just show me one time when that happens. No, Jason, it's not as simple as just counting the May as the first month. When you almost always the month of Aviv it's gonna be in parts of 2 months, right? Like okay, like this past year, the month of Aviv on my calendar, because I always go by the first, by the sighting of the first crescent moon. Well, we know we had that solar eclipse on the 8th. This is kind of interesting because it's almost lining right up to our calendar, because the 8th was a Monday this year also, right? So, but we're not going to see that crescent that night because that was a totally black moon. But you are going to see it on the night of the 9th, which is actually, going to turn into the 10th because evening to evening, right? So we have so this is kind of close to, I mean, just the dates, not this part, not how their moon phases are going, but I'm just saying like April 8th. So now it's like the 10th. So this is going to be the first of our NISAN this year. So now I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So yep, Tuesday night, I took Tuesday night off from work because I was like, yep, this is Passover. So this year I'm celebrating Passover, Passover Day the 14th, and then the 24th. Then, and the reason why I'm counting this and showing you this is that if you go, let's count another 14 days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So see, we're going into May. So it's like normally it's going to be, you can have your Passover, your month of Aviv will go into May a little bit, or it might go from March to April or April to May, but the Passover itself will never fall in May. Never. You'll never see it fall in May. You'll never see it fall. I think the 26th might be the absolute latest. I actually think the 25th is the absolute latest. I think 26 is too late. I think the 25th is the latest it's going to ever fall. I would say 26 is way too late. And then you guys are trying to say, oh no, we're going to start it even later than that. And that just sounds completely crazy to me. So now you're telling me you guys are starting it in 1844. You're going to start it on the 19th. And then you're going to have your Passover in May. Like that's real late. I wonder when would you be having? I'm curious about something. So what's that going to set your So if you got all this a month later, you're still in the month of Adar, and well, you're definitely not going to have 2 back-to-back postponement years. So what, you're going to wind up having like a Passover and what, March? The next year? I mean, is that? So you're going to wind up having Passover on. See, that's just whacking that. I don't know, man. That just looks like a crazy calendar to me. Because now it's like when you're following this in the 1845, Like all these, I don't know. I'm too tired to really think about that. I just think that's kind of whacked out, man. I'll just leave it at that, man. Just find me one single group that had it in May, Passover. No, I understand what you're saying. First month, April. But that's not, no, but that's just not how Jews do it. Like we don't go, oh, it's April, let's start celebrating this, right? We don't, that's not how we do it. You go by the moon. Well, okay, I argue the moon. Herb Selinsky argues not the moon, but we argue the lights in the sky. And actually, I think it's pretty accurate. I don't think we have to go by the Aviv. I think we can look at the lights in the sky and figure it out. Because this year, even some of the Jews I know and feast keepers I know, even though they went by the Barley, half of them that go by the Barley, half of them celebrate it early and half of them celebrate it in the exact same month I celebrated it, and at the exact same time I celebrated it, right? So it looks like even though I go strictly by the lights in the sky, that just like it says in Genesis 1:14, I'm doing it okay. Nanya Biz, I think he goes by the Barley, and he celebrated the exact same time I did. But I'm gonna just like, what are you guys celebrating if you're having your? I mean, because I think Barley should be seen in Israel by that time on April 3rd in 1844. I don't think you would have had to wait till, because what you're saying is, oh yeah, there's some times when you have Passover in May, but no one's seen it in the past 200 years. Except for the Seventh-day Adventists. I mean, you guys are like the only ones that seem to claim it. That's what seems crazy to me. Like I'm trying to find one single person telling me that. Let me know when that year ever happens, where it's like, hey, Chris, Passover, look, the Jews are celebrating in May. I mean, I'm talking about people with observational calendars. My calendar's an observational calendar. It just goes by the lights in the sky. Nanya goes by, he's a Hebrew roots, and he goes by observation of the Barley. But but if anything, those people had it a month earlier than me. So that's what I'm saying. This looks crazy to me. Dude, yeah, all the official statements of the SDAs, we're trying to find Jews, though. I'm not going by some cult. I mean, I'm sorry, man, but like, you guys are not like God of the earth. Ellen White's not God. So I'm trying to find, and you guys don't even believe in the calendar. It's not like, oh, well, we got a real accurate history of it. Really, prove it. Like, what does your official statements even mean? Because you say all official statements of the SDA say April was the start of the year in 1844. May is never mentioned. Hold on. I see. You're saying something super ignorant now. Okay, I got it. Because you're not following this. We are looking at this calendar, Jason. Do you understand that for your date to happen, right? Do you understand even how this thing works? It's like almost everyone in the Torah, in the feast keeping community that I know, everyone that cares about these feasts, if we were living back in 1844, we would have started it exactly when this rabbinic calendar says, give or take a day, because I'm not sure if they got their moon all lined up correctly, but give or take a day. Well, I won't say take a day. It's either it's going to be the 22nd or 21st. We would have started it. I'd have to go back and look at their astronomical, but it's not going to matter for this demonstration. We would have started at one of these two dates because it's after the 20th. I know, I definitely know the 20th was the the vernal equinox. So it would have been 21st or 22nd. We would have started it because that's when you see the sliver. And so we would have been celebrating Passover on the 14th, Wednesday of April 1844, right? That's normal. That's normal to celebrate it in April. What you guys are saying is, no, that's wrong. You actually start on the 19th. I've never heard of someone starting the month of Aviv on the 19th, but that's what the Seventh-day Adventists are claiming. You go show me that. Show me anyone that's starting the month of Aviv on the 19th of April. That's a crazy claim. But that's what you're claiming. And now, look, right here, if you look at it, because see, you're saying that we're saying it would have been the 30th of Nisan, but you're saying no, it would have been the 1st of well, you're okay. Let me just go by this because I actually know it should be the 9th. I think it should be the 19th, but let's say okay, so you're saying it should be the 20th, right? 19th. I think it would be the 19th personally, is when it actually would be. But just for this calculation's sake, to keep it simple, since they already have it numbered, they got the 1st of Lair on here, but that's actually what you would say is the 1st of Nisan, right? And you gotta look at how late that is. I know we can take a day off there, but so that's why it's like, yes, you might be saying it starts in April, but it's still going into May. That's why I said Passover's in May. Look at this. 14th of Lair, 15th of Lair. That's the 3rd and 4th of May. That's what we keep saying. I don't know how hard this is to comprehend. You're saying that according to get your date, if you want it to hit October 22nd for the 10th of Tishri, you have to say that instead of Lair, it's actually Nisan, right? So you're saying the Jews are off by a month. You're claiming they started 1 month too early. You're claiming that 99.99% of the Torah and feast-keeping community is all wrong, and this one person you're going with is the right one. And you're saying, yeah, you guys all started too early, and you're starting it in April, right? But see, your Passover, that's going to make your Passover land in what month? Look, it's May. It's May. The Passover is going to land in May. That's when 15 days later, it's always going to be on a full moon. The full moon's always on like the 14th, 15th of the month, right? Because, the sliver is on the 1st. 14 days later, that's the full moon. It's always like this every single time. So so right there's the 4th. I know you keep going, our official statement says April. I know it says you started in April, but that put Passover in May. There is no Passover in May. And May's never mentioned, and it's like, follow this. Didn't you ever look at this? You should know this calendar I'm looking at. You should know this complaint. Don't tell me, oh, well, I just believe, this woman had a vision and I just thought it sounded so good. And I just believe. No, please tell me you're smarter than that. And you actually looked into this. You actually sat there and studied this. So some Adventists expected the time periods to terminate at the end of the Jewish year in 1844 at the commencement of the next Jewish year on the 2nd day of the new moon on April 7th. Hold on. Some Adventists expected the time periods to terminate at the end of the Jewish year in 1844 at the commencement of the next Jewish year on the 2nd day of the new moon on April 7th, according to Karaite reckoning. 43 of special interest were the Great Jubilee year Passover events associated with the theme of liberty and redemption. Yeah, but I don't know what this April 7th has to do with it. Because April 7th would not be a new moon. Because, I mean, like, you can look at an astronomical calendar. I mean, like, it's only going to be 1 day off from here. Like, this rabbinic calendar right here, it's pretty close. Like, it's a day off. Like, it ain't no, like, I don't know what that April 7th is, because April 7th here is like it's like past it's past the full moon. So I'm trying to figure this all out. What I'm telling you is, you can look at any Jewish record at all, any astronomical table. It's going to tell you a full moon was on either the 3rd or 4th. You know, if you're looking on Wednesday night, it's going to be Wednesday night, which is technically the 4th, you know, on a Jewish calendar, right? So Wednesday night, you're going to see a full moon, because there's always a full moon on the Sabbath, which is the first day of unleavened bread, right? So you're always going to see a full moon that day. And so you're going to have to wait 14 days. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So, yeah, you know, and then you might have a dark moon. So this might be a new moon right here. So that might be why they're calling it the 30th of NISAN. And then you're going to have the first of Liar on the 20th. And like I said, I'm not looking this up, but those astronomical tables, it's only going to differentiate by a year at best. I mean, by a day at best. So, dude, I have obviously looked into this Karaite reckoning more than you said. I should look more into Karaite reckoning in 1844. What about the April 7th? What April 7th? What? Look, hold on. You know what? I'm gonna go to this Bing, man, because it's like, why would you even tell me April 7th? This doesn't even make sense to me. What was the moon like on April 7th in 1844? I bet it's got no significance.
On April 7th, 1844, the moon was in a waning gibbous phase. It occurs just after the full moon, as the illumination is gradually decreasing.
Isn't that what I just
The
said?
full moon for that month had occurred on April 3rd, 1844, and the new moon was on April 17th, 1844.
That's what I just
So
said.
on April 7th, the moon was transitioning from full to new, which is why it was in the waning gibbous phase.
Right. Because I looked at what Snow wrote. I looked at their documents, and they said that they're going to start it on the 17th. Oh man, I need to find that. Where is that document at? If I can find that document real quick. Maybe this. I think I found it. Oh, shoot. Open with. Okay, I think I got it right here. I think I got that letter somewhere here. Oh yeah, here we go. Got it right here. Here's that Kalman letter. So, and this is all I can find, right? And I know you go, oh, well, find me the Karaite that he was talking to then. If it's not this one, find me the right one. But where did I see that date at? Because I actually saw in Well, all I know is this says, oh, this isn't the one I was thinking of. Because there was one letter where he's talking about keeping it, where he's talking about the past cycle of the Passover and everything. And that past cycle, he even brings up these dates. And I don't remember seeing the 7th or 8th. I don't, dude, you know what? Then they're not real Karaites. I'm going to tell you that straight up, because there's no Jew on earth that would say that that's not the second day of a new moon. You got something really whacked out there, Jason, because there's no way April 7th was the second day of the new moon. There's no way. Like, I know the rabbinic calendar pretty well. And the rabbinic calendar would never say that. You might be talking about 1843. Are you confusing it with 1843? Because I think you might be, because I don't see how it could be. I'm going to look real quick. What was it? April 7th. And I don't know where you're getting that from. It can't be the second day of the new moon. There's no Karaite reckoning. There's no Jewish reckoning at all. Because if you know how this works, the full moon is always on the 14th or 15th, right? So count 3 days later. Well, if it was let's say it's the 4th, and the full moon was on the 4th, 3 days later is April 7th, right? So if it's 3 days later and it's April 7th, guess what? It's a waning gibbous moon, right? I think that's how it's pronounced. I can't remember. Yeah, waning gibbous moon. That's it. And I mean, that's even what the AI is telling me. That's what I know from me also doing my own research. I keep bringing up Kalman because he's the only Karaite I can find. Show me the other Karaite that kept a Passover in May. You bring it up. I did my research. I found one Karaite Jew. Okay. This is the only Karaite. This is the only person claiming to be a Karaite that kept such a calendar where you have a Passover in May. I cannot find a single Jew, and I've looked at every single different Jew, which keeps every single different calendar. There is not a single one, Jason, that keeps a Passover in May. I'm challenging you to find me one. You find me one. And that April 7th date, that does not make any sense. You go ask any single Jew you can find. Go, and I bet if you walk up to them and you start going into them and say, this was a new moon, they look at you like you're crazy. It's like it's not. The problem is, you said you're only looking for Karaites that kept Passover in May. Correct. That kept it one time in May. One time. I was just looking for someone that kept it one single time in May. Right? I can't find a single group that kept it one single time in May. I'm not saying that kept it in May every single year, Jason. Let's get this clear. Not every single year. One single time in the past 2,000 years. Just kept it once. One single time in May. Because if you would have read earlier, I had the AI do a search. I can have the AI do a search again. Look, I'll ask. Here we go. Is there any group of Jews that ever kept Passover just one single time in May in the past 2,000 years? This says Passover or Pesach is a significant. Oh, here I can let it. See if
Passover or Pesach is a significant Jewish holiday that commemorates the Israelites' exodus from Egypt. It's traditionally observed in the Hebrew month of Nisan, which usually falls in March or April on the Gregorian calendar. The date of Passover is determined by the lunar-based Hebrew calendar, not the Gregorian calendar, and it always begins on the 15th day of Nisan. Given this information, it's highly unlikely that Passover was ever observed in May. The holiday's timing is strictly defined by the Hebrew calendar, and there's no historical record suggesting that Passover has been celebrated in May in the last 2,000 years. If there were any exceptions, they would be extremely rare.
Jason, how dense are you? You know why I'm searching for it? I mean, dude, you can't be this dense, Jason. I'm searching for it because you got to find it because you guys, for your calendar to work, right? Okay, I'm going to try to do this one more time, Jason. This is getting frustrating, though. Let me get back up to the correct year, 1844. Now, it doesn't matter if you're using an observational calendar or not. You've got to go by the moon. Everyone goes by the moon. And like I said, the moon date might only be off by a day on this calendar. So I'll grant you a single day, right? Now, we can see that in 1844, this is when I say almost every single Jew in the entire world would have celebrated the first of Nisan in March, right? So you start in March, but you know when your Passover is going to be? Right here. See this? It says the 14th of Nisan, 15th of Nisan, April 1844, right? But see, you're saying, no. It's our calendar. Our calendar is better. This calendar is wrong. It's supposed to be one. You're saying now, Jason, follow this. Think, focus. You're saying no. You got it wrong. This should be Adar II, right? That's what you would say. You'd say no. This is Adar II. Nisan should be instead this month of Liar, right? So what you're saying is, no, you started Nisan way too early. It should be the month of Liar, right? Okay, so now in April of 1844, if you start it on the 20th, look at this. This is the first, right? So now this is going to be the 8th on the 27th. On the 30th, it's the 11th. It's still not Passover yet. Oh, that's because you got to wait till it's the 15th so it can be on the full moon. Well, the full moon of Liar is going to be on the 4th, on the the night of the 3rd or the day of the 4th, right? Okay, but you're saying this is the month of Nisan. Now, if you want, now hold on a second, Jason. If you want your Day of Atonement to be on October 22nd, this is how it's got to work. This Liar month, it has to be Nisan. That means you got a Passover in the month of May. Do you follow? That's how it works. Yes, you're saying Aviv or Nisan. You're saying it started in April. What I'm saying is, yes, on my calendar, in many months, it might start in April, but like this year, it started in April. But there are months where there are also many years where it starts in March, like towards the end of March, and then you'll have Passover in April. Okay. But it's normally April and in March. But like this year, a little bit of our month, the end of the month, like the last 5 days, ran into May, or maybe more than 5 days, but it ran into May because our Passover this year was on the 24th. But see, so if you count 14 days later, well, you're going to have it in somewhere around the 5th, 6th, of May. And then you're going to start, and then we'll start our month of Liar. But what you're saying is that for you guys, you're having your Passover in May of that year on May 4th. I'm saying Jews never had it. Are you following this? And no, and yes, Karaites do keep it in April. I know Karaites that do keep Passover in April. They do not keep Passover in May. Your calendar, it has to be in May, because if you look at it, because this is the calendar you're saying is wrong, right? Because this is the Jewish calendar you're saying is wrong. So the reason why we have to scoot your Passover into May is to make it so if it doesn't get scooted over into May, guess what happens? Tishri happened in September. Chris is right. Now, is Chris right? Is Passover, is Tishri in the 23rd? Because see, Jason, it sounds like you're arguing. Oh, no. Passover should have been in April. Well, if it was in April, it's going to be on the 23rd. But if your Passover fell in May 4th, like you're trying to say, like your Snow's trying to say, oh, that's going to push your month of Tishri all the way into October 22nd. But see, they're saying that's Cheshvan. I would say it's Cheshvan because it's too late. And that's way too late to be having Tishri. But so that's why you have to have your Passover in May that year. That's why I'm asking you, find me a single Jew that ever in the past 2,000 years had Passover in May. You won't find it. It's not going to happen. But that's what's required if you want your Tishri date to fall on October 22nd. That you need to, in order to shove it to that date, that's what you got to have. And if you tell me this one more time, man, I'm gonna think you're like just the hard-headed, like you really shouldn't even. I hope you're not getting paid to be an apologist for them, because I don't know how much more simpler I can explain it. Go look at that calendar. Yes, I'm searching for, Jason. Let me be clear. I'm searching for any group of Jews that kept it one single time in May in the past 2,000 years. They might have kept it. They might have had Passover every other time in April. They might have had it every other time in March. But they just had it one single time in the past 2,000 years in May. That's all I was even looking for. Just one single time in 2,000 years. No one's done it but your little group. That's it. Don't you think that's weird? And then the only one guy I can find that your officials were talking to, it was Kalman, and he's got this sunrise to sunrise date. Dude, I'm not going to do no more. What research? You have told me. Hold on. I don't think you know what you're talking about, Jason, because you go, again, you're only searching for those who kept it in May. Dude, the ones who kept it if they kept it in April, guess what? I'm right. You're wrong. Because that means if it was kept in April, it's in September. That means your Day of Atonement's in September now. You have to have it. This particular year, you have to have Passover fall in May in order to push your Tishri, which is the Day of Atonement, the 10th of Tishri. You have to have it. And actually, it should be on the 23rd, not on the 22nd. That's another technicality. Because you got to remember, they're saying it's sunrise 21st to sunrise 22nd. But there's a problem because it actually should be the 23rd, but that's a whole nother conversation. You seem to have a real hard time just getting this little calendar part right. So I'm just going to go with the Passover date. That's why I said this is a simple question. Now, if you want me to go search again, but if I go, okay, what groups kept it in April? That would be my group, Jason. And then, but see, that doesn't help you. I don't know why you want me to search for someone that had it in April, because it would say, well, that's a very common thing to have it in April. Yeah, I had it in April. All my Torah observant friends had it in April. That particular year, it has to be in May. We're talking about the Passover has to happen in May. I already did, Jason. That's how that, and but no one kept it in May. No one, except for this little group you found. Look, hold on, let me show you something. In order for Tishri 10 in 1844 to fall on October 22nd, doesn't the Passover have to be in May? Well, it kind of misspelled Tishri, but I think it'll get it right. See here. It says the date of October 20.
The date of October 22nd, 1844, is significant in the context of the Millwright movement and the Great Disappointment. The Millwrights, who were the precursors to the Seventh-day Adventist Church, used the Karaite Jewish calendar to determine the date for the Day of Atonement in 1844, which they equated with the cleansing of the sanctuary mentioned in the Book of Daniel. This date was calculated to be on the 10th day of the 7th month, Tishrei, according to the Karaite calendar, which fell on October 22nd, 1844. Passover, on the other hand, is observed on the 15th day of the first month, Nisan, of the Hebrew calendar. In 1844, Passover began on April 3rd and ended on April 11th. The determination of Passover is based on the lunar cycle.
What it's talking about. Hold on. No, you don't understand what I'm talking about. Passover, if their calendar is correct, it would have to fall on May 4th or around May 4th, because they need the months pushed forward in order for the Day of Atonement to fall on October 22nd in 1844.
I understand your point now. You're referring to the specific calendar calculation used by the Millwrights in 1844, which was based on the Karaite Jewish calendar. The Karaites are a Jewish group that historically determined the beginning of months by the actual sighting of the new moon, which could lead to variations from the more widely used rabbinic calendar. In 1844, the Millwrights, following the Karaite calendar, expected the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, to fall on October 22nd. This was based on their interpretation of the 2,300-day prophecy in the Book of Daniel, which they believed pointed to the second coming of Christ. For this prophecy to culminate on October 22nd, the Passover for that year would indeed need to be a month later than the traditional rabbinic date, which was April 3rd to April 11th. However, it's important to note that the Karaite method of determining the calendar could result in different dates for the feasts compared to the rabbinic calendar. The Karaites' observance of Passover and other feasts could indeed vary from year to year based on their lunar observations, and could sometimes occur a month later than the dates observed by Rabbinic Judaism. The historical records indicate that the rabbinic date for Passover in 1844 was from April 3rd to April 11th, and the Day of Atonement was on September 23rd. The Millerites' expectation for the Day of Atonement on October 22nd was unique to their movement and not aligned with the traditional Jewish calendar dates for
Still not telling me what I'm asking it, because it's telling me yes, I know the date I would have had it would yes, the rabbinic calendar, yes, it would have fell between April 3rd to April 11th, but would have been April 3rd. I don't know why it's telling me April 3rd to April 11th. There's no mystery there. It's April 3rd. But you agree that for their Day of Atonement to be on October 22nd of 1844, that would mean they would have to have a May Passover. That's when it would have fell, correct? Oh, I'm getting so angry at this, man. It's a simple question.
I understand the reasoning behind your question. The Millwright movement's interpretation of the prophetic timeline led them to conclude that the Day of Atonement in 1844 would fall on October 22nd. This was based on their understanding of the Karaite Jewish calendar and the 2,300-day prophecy from the Book of Daniel. However, historical records from the Jewish calendar indicate that Passover in the year 1844 began on April 3rd and ended on April 11th. There is no historical evidence to suggest that Passover was observed in May of that year by any Jewish group, inclling the Karaites. The Millerites' calculation for the Day of Atonement on October 26th.
See, that's what's required, though, for those dates, because you have to have 7 Jewish months. And Jason, you're trying to cut out one of the Jewish months. And you're trying to say one of the Jewish months didn't happen. And I'm like, no. You have to have 7 Jewish months. And that means your Passover, if you're going to do it that way, for it to land in on the 10th of Tishri, to land on October 22nd, then your Passover is going to have to start on April 20. I mean, not Passover, but your month of Abib would start in April 20th. Then your Passover would be on May 4th. And then you keep calculating the 7 months. And when you get to the 7th month, you're going to be in October, unless you cut out one of those months. And you can't cut out one of those months. It's 7 months. It's got to be 7 months from Nisan to Tishri. It's got to be 7 months. You can't just cut out one of the months. That's what I keep saying. And the computer's getting a little confused, because I'm trying to ask, I'm like, what I'm basically trying to say is, that wouldn't you have to have a Passover in May in order to have Tishri on the 10th, just so I can have some confirmation? But what it's doing is it's saying, well, there's no record of any Jew keeping it. And it's like, I already know that. There are no Jews that ever kept it. And don't tell me you did more research, man, because you have to. You're right. And look, I said they believe. Yeah. Didn't I just say that, Jason? And Jason, I swear, dude, if you were sitting here, dude, I'd freaking punch you right now, man. It's like, how many times have I said, yes, I know they're starting it on April 20th, Jason. You're saying that you believe they started on April 20th, which you count 14 days later. You're having your Passover on the 4th of May. I'm saying, show me one single Jew that ever did this. And then when I go search it, you're going, well, the problem is you're searching for someone that's ever had it on May. And that's because it needs to be on May that year for this to work. If you don't have it, if you don't have your Passover in May, then you're saying that, no, Chris, you're right. We're wrong. The 7th day, we lied, right? You're saying you lied. Oh, look, count the months, Jason. How many months do we see? Now, you got to remember, you're the one that wants to start at where Lyre is. But if I start at, okay, look, right here, I'm going to count my months. We got Lyre. So we still see Lyre. That's 1. Sivan. Here's Sivan. So we got 2. Sivan, Tammuz. Now we got Tammuz. So we got 3. So Tammuz goes into July. Av. So now we got Av starting in July. That's 4. So now we got Elul in August. So that's 5. Right? Hold on. I kind of lost count. Sorry. I'm kind of dumb. Okay. So we got okay. I know what. See, now if I count it my way, I'm going to say, I got Nisan, Lyre. So I got 2. So now I got Sivan, that's 3. Tammuz, that's 4. Av, that's 5. Elul, that's 6. So now my 7th is going to be September, right? So right here's my 7th month, and we got Tishri in September. But see, if we do yours, you got to shove it 1 month, right? So that's why we're getting Passover in May, because you had to shove your whole calendar forward. Because if you don't do it, this is the 7th month right here. Because you got to think in terms of moons and everything. And this is when your 7th moon would be starting right in the middle of September. So that would be your 7th month right here. And that's with me starting it. But now, see, if we go by your count, but but see, you're trying to take off a day, and you can't do that. You're going to still be short. You're going to be even shorter. So you can't get to here without shoving it a whole month forward. That's why I have Passover in May. I don't know how difficult this is for you. Dude, you know what? It doesn't even... What do you mean, what did the Karaites say? There's no Jew, period. There's no Karaite in the world that... Go find me a Karaite. Find me a single Karaite, Jason, that says Passover was in May. Because that's what's required. How hard is this? You can't find... There's no Karaite that would say... You go ask a Karaite if they even think that's reasonable that Passover would be in May. Ever be in May. I just want to hear you find me one that's a real Karaite that says they think that's possible. Go ahead, find me one. Find me one that says they think it's possible in the past 2,000 years. You find me a Karaite. I want to talk to that Karaite. You ain't going to find him, dude. He doesn't exist. That's because this is a lie. When did the Karaites say the Day of Atonement was in 1844? The Karaites say it was on the 23rd of October, not October, 23rd of September. They got, and this is what would have made sense, because they're not going to have a Passover in May. They would have had it in April. Well, Passover in April would have fell on, if you want to go look back one more time, Passover in April, right here's your 15th day. That's your 15th day of the new moon. Of the first moon after the vernal equinox, because the vernal equinox was on the 20th that year. Well, 14 days later, after the 20th day, here's the 15th day of Nisan, right? I mean, well, here's the 14th day, 14 days later, and here's the 15th day. Here's your full moon. Well, a moon cycle has about 29 and a half days to it, right? So if this is the 15th day, think about this. This is the 15th day right here of this moon cycle, right? And a moon cycle has 29 and a half. So we guess how many more we got to count? We got to count about at least 14 or 15 more days, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Oh, looky here. But this would have been a totally dark moon still. So you would put the first day right about here, the 20th. And if you do it this way, then you get to have your Day of Atonement on October 22nd. But see, what you got to do is you got to start your day right here. Right here would be the new moon. It would be the sliver. Right there's your sliver of your moon. So now you're saying, no, Nisan should start here. And what I'm saying is every single Karaite I read about had Passover in April. But you're saying, no, they started the month of Aviv in April, but they had Passover on the 3rd, and that's why we got the Day of Atonement on the 22nd. See right here. Well, you guys say it's the 22nd. Well, you guys actually say it's the 21st, but there's a little issue there, but we're not going to go into that. But you guys say this 9th of Shavan is actually the 10th of Tishri. But I'm arguing that you should have had to wait till the sundown on the 22nd to get the 10th of Shavan. But you're trying to say Shavan is actually Tishri, because see, Shavan's the month after Tishri, right? But you're saying no. Passover was in May that year. Oh, well, if Passover's in May, then you're saying Tishri's on the 22nd. Hey, I mean, I don't know what you want me to prove, dude. I've been sitting here with a calendar for over 2 hours. I don't know. How hard can this possibly be? How hard is this? Yeah. Uh, Huh, Musty? What have you been saying, man? Like, and it seems to be based on the prophet that is not of God. Yep, that's it. Speaking about their dreams. I had a dream of Jesus. But Jeremiah 23:16 must have been ignored. No one tested this prophet. Yeah. Like, I mean, is anyone else not following this? Is this really like that hard? Like, you just look at this calendar, it's got almost the exact same dating of a moon. If you go to like NASA's website, it's gonna, these are the same days. NASA's gonna be like, oh, well, on in March of 21st, you're gonna see the sliver of the moon. NASA might say the 22nd, maybe. I don't know, like I said, but it's only going to be I bet it's only going to be a day off at the most, right? At the most. This is good enough to do a discussion with, so even if it was like even if this rabbinic calendar, like, it doesn't have the astronomical calculations perfect, it's off no more than a day. And so there's like nothing on here that hurts my point, but I keep pointing out that you don't, no one has Passover in May. No one. That's why this is, and you're the ones that have to prove it, Jason. You have to prove it. Like, I'm telling you, every single Jew I know, and I have asked different Jews for a whole year now. Ever since I found this out, I have asked different Jews before I even talked about this. It's not like, oh, I just, did a quick internet research recently, and no, I've been thinking about this for a whole year, asking different Jews and their calendars. There's this one guy, he does videos of nothing but calendars. He doesn't know of anything like this. So who do you know? I mean, what it is you guys just have just believed this thing without even checking it out. It's like, why would you ever think this? Don't you think that's a little crazy? Like, hey, no, I'm serious. Go check on different websites. Don't just ask SDAs. Go on all these different Torah websites and go, or Torah channels, and say, hey, haven't they had a Passover in May? That's not too weird, is it? See what they say. I think having Passover in May is crazy. It doesn't matter. Look, okay, Stefan, you might have asked it according to the Karaite. Yeah, but you know what? Because when you ask it that, what it does is it looks up. Okay, Stefan, let's not be too dumb here. When you ask Chat GPT this, the first thing they might do is look up October 22nd, 1844. Then what it does is, in its algorithms, it starts searching the first site that came up with that date. Then it starts looking at the logic of all those people who wrote about that on that date, right? And then if you don't like get real specific with it, it'll just look up an SDA website and come back and be like, oh, they made a pretty good argument. It's this date. This is what the Karaites believe, right? And they'll say, according to the Karaites. But when we try to find actual Karaites that believe it, we can't find none. But we have the SDAs who claim the Karaites had this date. But when you try to go look for an actual Karaite, can't find one. You can't even find a Jew that says it's a possibility. I want you to even find a Karaite or a Jew that says it's a possibility. Find me one. You can't find it, but you'll go do Chat GPT and be like, oh yeah, we're right. Oh, because Chat GPT so look, when I do these searches, you have to do them in a certain way where you know what the algorithm's going to say. Like, I could sit here and ask this thing, and it's going to start telling me, if I go redo this all over again, I can be like, look at this. On October 22nd of 1844, was that the Day of Atonement? And what I'd probably do is look up Seventh-day Adventist websites. See, it says it's historically significant for the Millerite.
The date of October 22nd, 1844, is historically significant for the Millwright movement, which anticipated the second coming of Jesus Christ on that day. This event is known as the Great Disappointment. However, according to historical records and Jewish almanacs, the actual Day of Atonement in 1844 fell on September 23rd. It's important to note that a small Jewish sect called the Karaites observed the Day of Atonement on a different calendar, which placed it on October 22nd. This difference in dates was part of the Millerites' calculations leading up to their expectations for the second coming.
Okay, but see, it's saying a group called the Karaites or Karaites believe this, right? But it got that from the Seventh-day Adventist website. Because if I ask it, oh, I want to see who these Karaites are. Can you give me the specific name and place of these Karaites?
Certainly. The group you're referring to is known as the Karaite Jews. They are a Jewish religious movement that recognizes only the written Tanakh Hebrew Bible as the supreme authority in their religious law and theology. Unlike Rabbinic Judaism, which accepts the oral Torah and Talmud as authoritative, Karaite Jews do not treat these oral traditions as binding. The Karaites emerged around the end of the Second Temple period and have maintained a distinct presence.
Okay. But don't some of them keep the rabbinic calendar?
While the Karaite Jewish community is known for adhering to their own calendar based on the observation of the new moon and the ripening of barley, there are instances where individual Karaites may follow the rabbinic calendar for practical reasons. However, as a community, Karaites generally do not accept the rabbinic calendar, which was standardized in the year 359 CE. The rabbinic calendar is a calculated calendar that determines the...
Okay. So these Karaites, I guess they kept it in, well, they kept Passover in May, correct? See, that's the question you got to ask them, because you got to look at the calendar and see, like, okay, let's work it backwards from Tishri to when Passover would be.
Actually, the Karaite Jews typically observe Passover based on the agricultural conditions and the sighting of the new moon, which can lead to variations in the date compared to the rabbinic calendar. However, according to a recent article, Karaite Jews began Passover this year on April 6th. This is because they wait until the barley is ripe before celebrating Passover, which starts with the Passover Seder on the 15th of Nisan. The date of Passover can vary from year to year, and while it may sometimes fall in May, this year it...
Okay, that's fine. Let's see here. Let's ask it, when did it fall in May? So, according to the Karaites, when did it fall in May? Because that's what you got to have. You got to have a May Passover for this thing to work. I've showed it to you several times. Because you got to have 7 months.
The Karaite Jews determine the date of Passover based on the ripening of barley and the sighting of the new moon, which can lead to variations in the date each year. While the search results did not provide a specific instance of Passover falling in May for the Karaites, it is possible for it to occur in May depending on the agricultural conditions and lunar observations. Historically, the Karaite method can lead to Passover being celebrated a month later than the rabbinic date, which could place it in May, especially if the barley has not reached the Aviv stage by the expected time. However, without specific historical records or a current calendar reference, I cannot confirm a particular year when the Karaites observed Passover in...
Can you find just one single year in the past 2,000 years where they observed it in May? Because that's what this requires.
After searching through historical records, I found that specific information about the Karaite Jews observing Passover in May is not readily available. The Karaite method of determining the date for Passover is based on the ripening of barley and the sighting of the new moon, which can vary from year to year. This means that while it is possible for Passover to fall in May, identifying a specific year within the past 2,000 years where this occurred would require access to detailed historical records and calendars that are not currently available in my search results. The Karaite practice of determining the date for Passover is unique and does not follow the fixed rabbinic calendar, so it is subject to variation based on agricultural conditions and lunar observations.
I know
This can
about all
lead to
this.
significant differences.
See, I already know it's got all this. What it's doing is it's looking at some of those SDA resources where it's talking about the Karaites and saying, well, it could fall later than the rabbinic, but the AI doesn't specifically understand when it says a month later. Okay, a month later would mean like this year. There were some people keeping Passover in March, so yes, it's going to fall later this year. Last year we were all keeping it, all 100% of us were all keeping it on the same date last year. There was no one had a split difference, right? We were all in 100% agreement last year. We'll probably all be in agreement next year. This year was just an odd year, but I think we'll all be in agreement next year. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't looked at the calendar, but I know we were all in agreement last year. We all agreed that was Passover last year that we were all celebrating. So when it says it can vary a year, I think the computer gets a little confused as to what that means to vary a year. Not vary a year, vary a month. It gets a little confused as to what that means. So you mean to tell me that you found a Karaite group or any Jewish group that observes the feast who kept Passover in May, correct?
I apologize for any confusion. My search did not yield specific information about a Karaite or any Jewish group that observed Passover in May. The Karaite Jews determine the date of Passover based on the ripening of barley and the sighting of the new moon, which can vary from year to year. This means that while it is possible for Passover to fall in May, identifying a specific year or instance where this occurred is challenging without detailed historical records. The Karaite practice of determining the date for Passover is unique and does not follow the fixed rabbinic calendar.
What is the likelihood of Passover being in May? Because see, that's the thing. I've never heard any
Passover, or Pesach, traditionally occurs in the spring during the Hebrew month of Nisan, which usually falls in March or April on the Gregorian calendar. The Torah emphasizes that Passover should take place in the spring, and historically, the month was even called Aviv, meaning spring. The likelihood of Passover being in May is quite low due to the structure of the Jewish calendar, which is lunisolar. This means it is based on both lunar months and solar years, designed to ensure that the festivals, including Passover, align with specific seasons. The Jewish calendar periodically adds a leap month to compensate for the difference between 12 lunar months and the solar year, which keeps Passover within its
It
designated.
basically says there's no chance. There's no chance it happens. You won't find it. Like, I mean, it would have found it. It would have been like, there's just nothing there. What I'm saying is, okay, so you got two problems. First of all, there's only one Kara I know of that even kept your calendar, and that's Kalman. I can't even find like a single shred of evidence of any Karite that ever, besides Kalman, that kept Passover in May. Kalman's the only one, right? Can't find another one that kept it in May. This computer is also getting confused the month of Aviv and saying Passover extending into from April to May, but Passover is just one day, and you got the Feast of Unleavened Bread that can extend into May. No, I don't even know if that's... Yeah, I can extend into May by maybe a day. Maybe a day or... No, can it? Yeah, I think it can do it by like a day or two. The Feast of Unleavened Bread, but you can't find... Like, you're just not going to find it. No, yeah, if you can find a Karaite that says that, because guess what? That same Karaite that would say the Day of Atonement was in October 22nd of 1844, if you can find a Karaite that says that, they would also say Passover was in May of that year, because they both have to happen, because you have to be able to count 7 months, right? It's 7 months to Tishri. So that's what I'm saying. And when you go look at this, go study a calendar, go look at every single Jewish calendar, every single calendar there is. You just go try to find me one single time when that happens. Because if we go look at our calendar, let me see if I can do Heb Cal 2024. See, this one that we just had, it's going to be the latest date possible. This is the year where you saw the arguing, because they're like, well, we might see some ripe grain. You got to remember, they were talking about we think we can see some ripe barley now, right? So we got... Oh, this one's weird. Why does it say... Okay, it's got Adar II. So see, they added Adar II, but well, I don't know why they didn't number the days on here. So that's making it really hard for me to see. Because what they didn't do... Oh, darn it, man. So I think they started Adar. So Adar II would have been like where these other people that were keeping it early, they started about the 9th of March, right? And I'm like, well, that's 9 or 10 days before the vernal equinox. That's why I was waiting. I was like, nope, I'm going to wait until after the equinox to start it. Well, the first day after it was right here, the 9th. See, Rosh Shadash Nisan, that means the first of Nisan. Right here, the 9th, because you had the eclipse. So right here. But see, they told us, oh, this is kind of late. But that's because they were arguing, because they were... we think we see barley. And then you would probably have the... I think the Pope celebrated Easter on the 31st, if I'm not mistaken. So let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So they waited until so it was like 2 days after the equinox, and they were they supposedly found barley grain in Israel and celebrated it. But this is like when the Pope... And so then the Pope's going to wait. Yeah, because the Pope's not going to celebrate it that close, because they got this thing where they hate the Jews. So it's like, we're going to wait a whole week. So they waited 7 days later and celebrated the 31st of Easter on Easter. But I mean, so I mean, just to think about this, just to get this into perspective, for your calendar, like, see, this year they're telling us that it was okay to start Nisan on the 9th. You know, some of these feast keeping groups, right? Now, I mean, if you think about it, here's the 16th, and then here's the 21st. So it's like almost 2 weeks later to the 21st, right? And you think about in that year, 1844, I would have said, no, let's start it on the 21st of March in 1844, right? You look at this, man, that's like 14 days earlier, and they're trying to argue that you're going to start Passover this early, right? I mean, yeah, you're going to start Passover. And that's almost that's nearly 2 weeks before about 12 days before I would start mine, right? In 1844. And they're trying to say they found grain, but yet you're saying, oh no, we're not. I mean, could you just imagine if it was like in 1844 and you're like, no, you're wrong. We're going to start it like way over here. But those people are already, I mean, this is like a month and a half later, basically, is what you're like. I don't know. Like, that just sounds real crazy to me that they're finding ripe barley, or they're saying they're finding ripe barley this early, but you're telling me no, you're not going to find it until the 20th. You're not going to find it on the 3rd, but they could find it on the 9th of March. But you're telling me like the 3rd of April is like not going to be Passover. And you're going to try to push it. Like, that's what seems crazy to me. The Karaites all say September. All the available evidence points to them believing in September, because they would have went by the man, dude. I'm telling you, I will donate $100 to the SDA church and apologize if you can find one reputable Karaite that actually keeps an evening to evening calendar that tells me that there's actually a possibility that they could have had Passover on the 3rd or 4th of May in the past 1,000 years. Like they actually think you would have had to wait that long. It's not there. It's just not there. Like, and you don't really sound like you knew all that much, Jason, to be honest, man, when you're telling me search for someone that I'm doing it wrong, because I'm searching for someone that kept it in May, when you have to find a Karaite that kept it in May. It's like, just okay. It's like, surely there must be one Jew or Karaite or some sort of Jew that has kept Passover in May in the past 2,000 years. So I said, surely there must be one Jew or Karaite or some sort of Jew that kept Passover in May in the past 2,000 years.
Given the variability of the lunar calendar and the agricultural dependency of the Karaite Passover, it is certainly plausible that at some point in the past 2,000 years, there may have been instances where Passover was observed in May by some Jewish or Karaite groups. However, pinpointing a specific instance without detailed historical records is challenging. The Karaite Jews, in particular, rely on the ripening of barley to determine the start of the month of Nisan, which then sets the date for Passover. If the barley was not ripe by the expected time, it could delay the observance of Passover, potentially pushing it into May. While my search did not reveal a specific year when Passover was observed in May, the possibility exists due to the nature of the Karaite calendar system. For a definitive instance, one would need to consult extensive...
Yeah, but I just can't find that definitive instance. I cannot find a Karaite that says that's even possible. Don't you think? Are there any official statements where Karaites themselves say that they observed Passover, or hold on, let me stop this mic. Kind of misspelled some stuff. So you want me to, I don't know why this thing won't just go back. Okay, where Karaites, are there any official statements where Karaites say they observed the Day of Atonement on October 22nd? Now I'm wanting to put 1844. Question mark. So let's see here. Are there, and I did say it, are there any official statements where Karaites say they observed the Day of Atonement on October 22nd? I didn't even put a year.
Based on the information available, there are no official statements from the Karaite Jewish community that confirm they observed the Day of Atonement on October 22nd, 1844. The date of October 22nd was significant to the Millwright movement, which predicted the second coming of Jesus Christ on that day, an event known as the Great Disappointment. The Millwrights used a calculation based on the Karaite calendar to arrive at the October 22nd date, but there is no solid evidence that any portion of the Jewish community, including the Karaites, observed Yom Kippur on October 22nd that year. It appears that this date was specifically significant to the Millwright movement.
Are there any official statements saying September 22nd or September 23rd? So far we have zero proof for you, Jason. Oh, but hey, look at here.
Yes, there are official statements confirming that the Day of Atonement for the Karaite Jews in 1844 was in late September, not late October. This aligns with the Rabbinical Day of Atonement, which historical records show was observed on September 23, 1844. This information clarifies that the Karaite Jews did not observe the Day of Atonement on October 22, 1844, as some claims associated with the Millwright movement have suggested. The official documentation from the Karaites confirms their observance of Yom Kippur in line with the rabbinical date.
And that rabbinical date, it just so happens to be even what all the observational calendar keepers would have used too. That, because we all would have matched up that same day. That particular year, everything just lines up. It just happens to line up. So there we go. The official Karaites, they say it's September 23rd. There's no official statements that say October 22nd. We also know there's no proof Jews ever kept Passover in May. No Karaite ever kept Passover in May. I have been through this for hours now, like over 2.5 hours now. Cannot find a single Karaite that kept Passover in May, which is what's required for the Day of Atonement to fall on October 22nd, 1844, because you have to start your month of Abib after the second new moon, right? So it's got to be on the second new moon after the vernal equinox, which would be April 20th. And then you count 7 months, because you got to have 7 months, when you hit Tishri, there's got to be 7 months, right? So that's why, and so your moon, it starts on April 20th. And to make it fall, to make everything line up to where it falls onto Tishri, that means you're starting Nisan on the 20th of April, and Passover is now going to be on the 4th of May, the 3rd or 4th of May. And then when you keep running the date forward, then it's going to land on October 22nd, and Tishri is going to be Tishri the 10th on October 22nd. But that's what needs to happen. But this says there's no official statements by any Karaite that says October 22nd and 1844 is that date. Now here, I'll go one step further. Oops, let me just ask it. Is there any year in which they kept the Day of Atonement on October 22nd? Okay, did they ever do it?
The historical records indicate that the Millwrights, a Christian movement in the 19th century, used the Karaite Jewish calendar to determine that the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, would fall on October 22nd, 1844. This date was significant for the Millwrights as they anticipated the second coming of Jesus Christ on that day, an event that came to be known as the Great Disappointment. However, it is important to note that the Karaite Jews typically observed their feasts, including the Day of Atonement, based on their own calendar, which often resulted in different dates than those observed by Rabbinic Jews. The critics of the Millwright movement claim that the Karaites were no longer using their special form of reckoning in 1844, which would have placed the Day of Atonement in October.
Even their special form
While
of
the
reckoning
Millwrights
wouldn't have
claimed
done
that
it.
the Karaites observed the Day of Atonement on October 22nd, 1844, there is no official documentation from the Karaite community to support this claim. The available evidence suggests that the Karaite Day of Atonement in 1844 was in late September, not late October. Therefore, based on the information available, there is no confirmation from the Karaite Jews themselves that they observed the Day of Atonement on October 22nd in any given year. The claim that the Karaites observed it on this date in 1844 appears to be specific to the Millwright movement and is not supported by official Karaite statements or documentation.
Yeah, see, that's the thing too. It's their special form of reckoning still would have placed it on September 23rd because that's the kind of reckoning I would have used. If everything I understand about the Karaites, we would have all agreed it was going to be that day in September, not October. Because there's no one that believes in a May Passover. There's never been I don't think in the history of this planet has there been a May Passover. Well, see, the rabbinical reckoning and the Karaite reckoning is all the same that year. It's all the same. It doesn't even matter because no one's going to have a Passover in May. No one. So Ellen White got it all wrong. You go back to her statements. Because here she is, she's just talking her little crazy statements. Because she's the one who says the priest entered in. As the priest entered in the most holy once a year to cleanse the earthly sanctuary. So Jesus entered the most holy of holies of the heavenly at the end of the 2,300 days of Daniel 8 in 1844 to make a final atonement for all those who could be benefited by his mediation. So, she's talking about like entered just like the priest enters in on the Day of Atonement on the earthly sanctuary, so Jesus entered the heavenly. So that's kind of a big deal because they got the date wrong. This probably didn't happen. So now this is just some crazy woman having a vision that doesn't mean nothing. And see, we can't confirm her vision, but now when we got a date based on a flaky Karaite Jew named Kalman who kept a sunrise to sunrise calendar, and you guys can't come up with any other proof. I found the Karaite that did keep it, but we can't find any other Karaite that kept it. I found your Karaite, and it's a guy named Kalman, but he keeps a sunrise to sunrise calendar, and no other Karaite, no other Jew will even admit that they would keep a Passover in May. I've never had anyone even hint at the possibility of a May Passover. The arguments are always, oh my gosh, you're celebrating it in March, or you're celebrating it in April. It was in March. Those are the only arguments. You'll only hear them arguing about March and April. All right. And it's like the fact that there's no argument about May. Like, oh, you celebrate it in May? You've never heard that argument. You've never heard them arguing like, oh man, look what they did, man. They celebrated it in May. Never, ever, ever. Boy. Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty obvious, and I mean, undeveloped team, dude, he's a pretty like impartial guy, man. I don't think I don't even think he cares about this topic. I think he's just kind of listening and giving an opinion, man. It's like it disagrees with the outrageous claim that everyone else is wrong. No, that's not how the burden of proof works. If I said we live in a simulation, the burden of proof is on me, not you, to prove that we don't. That's right, man. Yeah, you got this right. You're supporting last Thursdayism by telling the other to prove it wrong. Yeah. Dude, this isn't just anti-SDA sites, though, man. Dude, like, my gosh, man. We have showed so much proof, man. Dude, you show me, man. How many times have I asked these videos and complained, called people out on live chat streams, done everything, man. I have done everything. And it's like I've offered to debate this. I've done everything I possibly could. You know, for a while I was offering you guys like $300 to come debate this, right? To like go debate this on like on one of these Christian debate shows. Right now, my finances are not that good, but back then, 2 years ago, I was trying to do this, and now I'm so super confident because, man, I've been like, okay, if I was confident enough to, to offer someone just to debate me because I'm so sure that they have no evidence and I just want this exposed. You can only believe after 2 years of me just constantly badgering people for proof and seeing just the weak stuff they return to me. I want to see these official statements that are just going to mind blow anything I've shown today. Like, I mean, what do you actually know Jews that kept Passover in May? Because that's what it's going to require. I mean, I hope you finally followed that you have to count 7 months, right? And that's the only way you're going to count 7 months and have Tishri, the 10th fall on October 22nd. That's the only way possible. Well, you say good luck on my search, but man, like, you just know, man, it's like you guys just went and believed this person. And that's just, look, this is just like phase 1, of like step 1. Before someone tells me to believe this crazy vision, when I start to look at all their proof, oh, it was a sunrise to sunrise calendar. Oh, no Jew ever kept Passover in May. Oh, and it's like, and I'm critically thinking about this instead of just swallowing it like, oh, wow, you had a vision? Man, where can I join your church at? No. I'm not just going to believe you. You got to give me some good proof. And so far, this looks flaky to me, right? Right off the bat. Looks like you got your date wrong. No Jew keeps this. Who's this Karaite? Oh, can't find him. Yeah, I understand, dude. Trust me, if I didn't bump into so much Seventh-day Adventist stuff while I was doing eschatology research, I probably wouldn't care. It just got kind of annoying to me because what would happen is I call myself a historicist. They do too, but they got this like crazy stuff. And then when I'm like, no, no. I don't believe that stuff. I'm like, where do you get this at? Well, this is historicist. I'm like, where are you getting this from? Then they go take me to an SDA website. I'm like, no. That's a cult, man. That's not what historicism teaches. And you got to keep doing this over and over again to people. And it's like, and so when I'm just trying to have a basic conversation, it gets irritating when, I start to talk about my view and it's like, oh, you're a historian. And then I have to spend an extra 10 minutes of my time explaining I'm not this thing. And it's like, it just gets to you. And then it's like, oh, I keep the Sabbath. And then someone's like, oh, are you a Seventh-day Adventist? No. And then it's like, well, the Sabbath was done away with. And then they give me this horrible Seventh-day Adventist. Like they're arguing against me like they would argue with a Seventh-day Adventist. I'm like, no, No, that's not how I would argue that at all. And when I start arguing with the way I want to do it, it's like okay, suddenly they got to hit the brakes, and it's because they're like, well, I didn't think about it like that. That's because I think about it totally different. But you get kind of sick of it, man, when it's like these people think like, oh man, we can prove this so wrong, and it's like, well, wait a minute, you don't know about all this other proof, but that proof gets canceled out because of the way the Seventh-day Adventists defend everything, and it just kind of gets irritating to me. But anyway, it's 3 hours. I'm ending this. Thanks for watching. I hope people learned something. Sorry about the last hour. That probably seemed like a lot of me looking at the same calendar over and over again trying to explain it. So anyway, later.